Phones are too inherently easy. Yeah, but if you have it locked in this face double encrypted, where you can see it's like you finish, you can lock it and put the password. That's where. Gotcha. That makes sense. I have for years because it's so many. It's like, and then PD is like, they wouldn't let you carry it home. So it's like, you have this one, you change it completely. It could be that previous one. Yeah, the company that I work for can't reuse the last few passwords. Like I said, I just have to.
Okay, it is 7:30. Sorry, 5:30. I'll call the meeting to order. Sorry, my phone's in military time. If you'll please join me in silencing your cell phone so we don't disrupt the meeting. Ms. Fuller, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Loran, would you please take roll?
Mayor Hill,
Present.
Ken Owens,
Yep.
John Hodgkins,
Present.
Larry Sanders,
Here.
John Hatcher.
Here.
The record show we do have a quorum. So I wanted to provide some background about this town hall forum. I know that this isn't I don't think this is what the community had in mind, and it's not what I had in mind either. There's a major issue that we dance around, and that's an open meeting law. Open meeting laws require that any time that a quorum of the council is meeting, that we have to have, it has to be open to the public. There has to be an agenda about what it is that we're speaking about. So that puts some really hard parameters around what it is that we can do and how it is that we go about doing that. It made it incredibly difficult to make this process happen. And this is the only way that we could find to allow for us to have a dialogue with the community, to meet with the citizens, to have an opportunity to allow people to come in and to have an open dialogue as to the greatest extent possible. So to that end, that we have to be compliant with open meeting laws, we've posted an agenda. We've included things that we think are likely to be needing to be addressed to allow for us to facilitate a process in which this can occur. With that, the town hall is intended to be a question and answer session. This Q&A is unscripted and subject to the following ground rules. All of these rules are intended to help to ensure compliance with the open meeting laws, provide transparency for the public, and respect for those participating in the town hall meeting. We've asked that the city administrator Deuce serve as a mediator that is tasked with ensuring order and adherence to these rules, as well as the applicable statutes and policies. So I've asked that staff have been provided a card, if you will show that, please. This provides an opportunity for staff to say, hey, time out. Let us have a discussion with staff about perhaps legal issues that we might be dancing around that we might not be aware of. Gives us an opportunity to allow us to have to be counseled on what it is that maybe the issues that we're tiptoeing around that has some legal connotations to it, or some risks involved about things that we can and can't talk. So that provides them an opportunity to say, hold on, and that there's something that I need. And Leon, I'm sorry, I think that what we had talked about is that when you're raising that it's not something that I need to put full stop on everything, that's something that I need to come to. No, I think we said that will be full stop
on that one.
If it's not the card, if Leon simply has, say, I need you to call on me so that then I can help address something, that he'll simply raise his hand without the card, so that then I kind of know the difference of this is a full stop, I need to stop and listen to what it is and confer with city staff about what it is that we're whatever the issue may be, versus hey, I just need to provide comment, but I don't need a full stop for this. Visitors who wish to speak will be invited up to the podium. All other visitors remaining in the audience are expected to remain or maintain order and be respectful until their time to speak. This gives each visitor their chance to speak, ask questions, and we want to avoid talking out of turn. A large part of this is trying to adhere order so that then the people who are reviewing this via YouTube, our streaming channel, have an opportunity to hear what the questions are that are being asked, that there's only one speaker, that we're not speaking over the top of each other, that they're coming up to the microphone so that then we can pick up adequate audio that can be broadcast for that purposes. There is no specific time limit. Ordinarily, when the visitor comment comes up that we have kind of a 3-minute timer, we don't have a specific time limit of time that we're restricting to. However, the city reserves the right to terminate any visitor's time at the podium if the visitor is not following the intent of this forum, which is to ask the city questions, or if the visitor is not complying with these ground rules. We would like to ask that if you come up and you have a list of questions, if we can limit it to 2 questions and then come back up to the podium, allowing others an opportunity to have time to ask their questions as well, so we're not monopolizing the time with one speaker. Since this is an unscripted Q&A with no specific agenda items for discussion or decision, the mayor and council cannot engage in deliberations. That means that we can't be making deliberations that is moving towards a decision. We cannot make statements of opinion. We cannot make decisions. We cannot have viewpoint debates or any form of back and forth dialogue with the visitor on items that are not properly noticed. I'd like to challenge that one a little bit further with staff. Council may refer questions to staff or request an agendized item for future discussions, deliberation, or action. So to me, I mean, the purpose of what you guys are here for is to communicate with us and to have us communicate with you, to have that question and, very importantly, answer. So the back and forth dialogue with visitors that's not properly noticed, that if we're not making a decision and something, I mean, thinking about like legislative items that at a time, I think Leon and I were discussing just a hypothetical to give an example of something that is not a land use item. So we had talked about dog license, just as an example topic. If there was a question about dog license, why couldn't we have a dialogue with the community about the topic of dog license, that we're not working towards or deliberating towards a decision? If it's something that gets, that we say, let's add that to an agenda later, then that is an opportunity to invite the public to come in, and that's the time in which the council would have their discussion and deliberations and things. So and just using that as a hypothetical example, that I'm certain that there can be something else that may come up, to have that meaningful dialogue and discussion with the council about what it is that the community may be concerned regarding, that there's not an action item on the agenda, and later, if there were to be, that it would be at that time. Does that make sense?
So I'm going to jump in, and then Emily can fix whatever I say. So when we have this conversation like on dog licenses, if it's factual information that the city had dog licenses, doesn't have dog licenses, that's some of the things that we talked about when we met on Friday. That's factual information of what the council has done in the past and what we're doing. If it's information to try to clarify what the intent of the person asking the question is, to make sure that we agendize the item correctly, then that would be fine. But if we get to the point where a council member, I'll just say council member A, decides to start talking back and forth with that person about what we should do, then that the communication and deliberation is one part talking and one part listening. And therefore, all of the council is listening to this discussion about what we should do forward. In the open meeting law, if we have a discussion or a deliberation towards an item that is not on the agenda, any decision that we make in the future can become null and void. And so it puts any of those future discussions that are on the agenda at risk of being null and void after we make a decision on that. And since this is recorded live on YouTube, anybody that has a problem with the decision that we made could go back specifically to this night and say, look, you talked about it, you deliberated towards a decision, and therefore I don't like the decision that you made, and I can challenge that decision because you didn't have it on the agenda properly noticed.
Can I ask a clarifying question then with that, is that take an open meeting law violation in which a decision was reached in that there were discussions that were held that were not at an open meeting. This is an open meeting. So how, even though it's not something that's on the agenda, merely having a conversation in an open meeting that's even being recorded, that establishes a record of what everything that was stated, so there's no ex parte contacts or anything of that nature, that this is an open forum, it is an open meeting. So how does that not become something that is, you have an official record of it, you have an open meeting in compliance with open meeting laws? How then how is it that we cannot have that conversation and post it later? And I understand that, if you're having a topic, sticking on the topic of dog license, that somebody may have an issue with the fact that, I have an opinion about that, and I don't think, I don't agree with you in this way, or I think we should do this thing. That if that becomes a point in which becomes a point of deliberation of the council at a future meeting, it was held in an open meeting, it wasn't something that was agendized, there wasn't any action that was made on that at that meeting. So does that not then help make it fit?
The open meeting law is about the transparency of the actual meeting, okay? So, yeah. So basically what you have is YouTube is a wonderful tool that we have to be more transparent. But the open meeting law does not take YouTube into consideration. What the open meeting law states is for the general public out in the world of Rathdrum, the opportunity to be noticed ahead of time that there's going to be this topic of discussion. Whether it's a discussion or an action item, we have to have that on the agenda. If it's not on an agenda and you go into a deliberation or a discussion about this item, then the public wasn't notified prior to the meeting that that discussion was going to happen. What we have is a open forum, a Q&A possibility, but not anything specific. And so if there was a person out there that said, well, heck, if I would have known that they were going to talk about dog licenses, I would have shown up.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to watch it on YouTube does not have a compliance with the open meeting law. All it does is create a record of whether or not we followed the open meeting law or not. And so it makes it really easy to point to it and say, they did not follow the open meeting law because they had a discussion and deliberation on X topic, and I wasn't notified prior to the meeting. So the open meeting law is all about transparency and about notifying the public ahead of time of what they're going to talk about.
Sore subject for me personally, that I think that really is very limiting and unfortunate. It's aggravating.
Now, one of the things, Mayor, that we've kind of talked about is because, and you explained well to the public at the onset, all of these rules are based off of the fact that we have a full quorum present. So one of the things that the mayor and I talked about on Friday is if we do future town hall meetings and we have the mayor and one council member present, and we did quarterly town halls, a lot of these rules completely go away.
So, as we were discussing that, there was you and I had a conversation about legislators in which there is not a quorum. And for this body to have a quorum, it requires 3 members. So as long as we don't have 3 members, why couldn't we have 2 city council members present?
So quorum is only required for action items, but you can have a discussion or deliberation if there's 2 or more present. So which have to be which is part of the open meeting law.
So 2 or more present.
2 or more as part of your meeting
Mm-hmm.
would require a notice because you're still having a meeting, a discussion, deliberation with 2 or more. And we talked about this for the police panel.
Yes, I was going to mention that as an example too, that when we had the chief of police interviews process, that we had a city council member that was a part of it. There was, I think every single one of the council members was interested in participating in that, but we were limited to only having one. So why then is it okay for me to be present during that with a council member? How is that?
You two are two different branches of government. You are the executive branch, and a counselor is a legislative branch. And so you operate on different levels and make decisions in different areas of government.
Okay, Leon, you were talking about a legislative town hall meeting in which there were multiple legislators that were present. Why is that different?
It's different because the state has different rules for the open meeting law. So, for example, the legislature has, if you look on the legislative website for agendas, usually the agenda isn't posted until the day before the meeting, and usually at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There are also times when those agendas are posted the day of the meeting. So the legislature has exempted themselves from some of those requirements of the open meeting law. The open meeting law mostly refers to what cities, school districts, highway districts, counties, and the like do. But they have exemptions because it's a volunteer organization, the legislature. They're only in session on 3 months out of the year, and they're day to day, but those agenda notices don't have the same issues, and they have different exemptions.
Okay. Moving on here, 5, responses will be limited to factual information, prior council actions or votes, ongoing or planned city projects, or established city positions. All communications will reflect the official stance of the city as it currently exists, thereby maintaining compliance with the Idaho open meeting laws. No questions on land use items or staff conduct will be taken. And again, that this is, all of this is structured in, or is due to the limitations that we're trying to dance around, which is part of what has made this, creating this meeting so difficult. Land use items, when we're talking about that, we're talking about you can go up and you can put your finger on a specific parcel. I believe we can talk about past land use items. We
Not
can't
necessarily, Mayor, because some of those land use items might still be in processes.
So anything that, like taking an example of one, and I'm not going to name any name, but if I could put my finger on the map and talk about it, and it hasn't had the appeal process hasn't expired on that it still has the opportunity to come back before the council, and so we don't have the ability to discuss that.
Or there's future land use actions that need to be taken. So, for example, there's rezoning, which is a land use action.
Mm-hmm.
There's also things like preliminary plats, final plats, and all of those things are land use actions. So if they're still in the process of any of those things and haven't been completed, then there's still a possible land use item that's up ahead.
Mr. Mayor.
John?
Just for my edification, and Emily, maybe you can help me kind of clarify this. So I did look at the State Attorney General's open meeting manual, and I think really what we're talking about is the difference between the definition of a meeting, right? And looking at the manual, it's specifically saying, and I think this is what you're saying, Leon. The open meeting law defines a meeting to mean the convening of a government body or a public agency to make a decision or to deliberate. So you're saying we cannot deliberate, but having a conversation with the public, that does not constitute a meeting under Idaho state law.
You are having a meeting right now. This is a meeting.
But not according to the open meeting law,
Yes,
because we are
yes.
not deliberating towards a decision.
This, you have a
You are
quorum present. We have noticed it. It has been on the city's website. It's been posted where it needs to be posted.
Okay, so I'm reading what the Attorney General is saying in the manual, page 6. What constitutes a meeting under the open meeting law? Answer: the open meeting law defines a meeting to mean the convening of a government body or a public agency to make a decision or deliberate towards a decision on any matter.
Mhm.
We are not making any decisions tonight. We are not deliberating towards any decisions tonight. So
What do you
I'm
want?
reading the definition of this is not technically a meeting that constitutes an open meeting law.
One of the things that we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen is the deliberation point. Once you start crossing over into deliberation, that's the whole thing that we're talking about. When you cross over into deliberation, John, then we are officially in a meeting.
Gotcha.
By that definition. And that is one of the reasons why that is excluded as an option for this thing.
Yeah. And I can't speak for anybody else up here, but I'm not going to be deliberating with any of the other council members on any decisions or towards any decisions tonight.
But I think that, I mean,
But I want to have the ability to have conversations with the public.
and I want that too, and that's why I too am frustrated with the format in which we're kind of forced into. Reading this, it says in Idaho, an open meeting is defined as convening of a governing body. We are a governing body of a public agency. We are a public agency to deliberate, and when we're deliberating, I mean, that's what I was saying is that, like, deliberating, I was thinking of as this way, not as this way.
Yeah.
Or make a decision on public business, provided a quorum is present. There is a quorum present. So
the manual does define deliberation. The term deliberation is defined as the receipt or exchange of information or opinion relating to a decision, but shall not include informal or impromptu discussions of a general nature that do not specifically relate to a matter then pending before the public agency for a decision. Even the receipt of information related to a decision, i.e. a matter on which the governing body may have to vote on, amounts to deliberation and therefore triggers the definition and requirements of a meeting under the open meeting law.
Emily, when I Googled this, that it's coming up and it looks like, I don't know what tool this is, it just says AI overview and it says key definitions, meeting, the convening of a governing body to deliberate or make decisions with a quorum present. This includes informal as well as formal meetings where public business is discussed. And being that we put an agenda out, and I mean, it's hard, it would be hard to say that this is not a meeting, in my opinion. I would be difficult to call this anything other than a meeting, even if it is a town hall. And I really, really want to find a way to get to a point where we can have an open discussion with the community. I'd like to find a way that we can do this, but I'm struggling to see that.
Well, it
So,
sounds like the mayor and 2 council members is fine, but
mayor and one council member.
Why?
Yeah.
That's
You
doesn't.
can't use smaller convening groups of council members to skirt around the open meeting law. You have, just because there's not a quorum present, if there's two council people can discuss public business, which is then a meeting, which then you have an issue.
Okay.
And we're trying to figure out ways that we can do this as well. Mayor and I spent a couple of hours on this last week trying to figure out ways that we can make this work. And what I told the mayor and what I'm expressing to you as well and to the public is that Idaho has an open meeting law. We're really close to the edges of it. And if we're going to err, we should err on the side of caution and compliance with the open meeting law.
Okay, moving on here, the land use items may include any item related to a specific land use application or process that is governed by state code. All questions regarding staff conduct should be sent directly to the mayor or city administrator, and that pertains to
So there's a, on the land use, it's a due process. So that is protected with the Local Land Use Act. And that is a public hearing process, it's quasi judicial. So we can't have discussions outside of that process for land use items. As far as staff is concerned, that is an item that is under the exception from the open meeting law for executive sessions. So in any staff-related issues, those would have to be held in an executive session and not open to the public.
Okay, so in that, not trying to discourage people from bringing that, but it just needs to be directed to myself or Mr. Deuce outside of the open meeting process. I think there was one more thing I wanted to touch on with that. Another thing to be aware of is that there are many, many times, in fact, most always, very, very rare for us to have any prior knowledge to a pending application. Staff may be in conversation with developers, pre-development meetings and things of that nature regarding upcoming projects, applications, pre-application meetings, receipt of applications and things. So there may be land use items that we are unaware of, that we just don't have knowledge of. That's not something that's shared with us until it comes before us on the city council agenda. Staff will be more aware of those issues than what any one of us would be. I want to read the rest of this agenda so that then we kind of know what it is that we're looking at here towards the end. The city council discussion item number 6, at the end of this meeting, we would like for the council to list and prioritize topics for future agendas to give back to city staff, that we can bring the items that are discussed here back before the council, where we are permitted to have deliberations and discussions. In doing so, that my concern is that we may walk away from this meeting with 20 items and not have sufficient time to cover all of that on one agenda meeting. So prioritizing what things is it that we would like to speak about first, and so on, and kind of taper that or pace ourselves so we have time to be able to address the issues that are brought up. So at the end of this meeting, council be prepared to be listing the items that we would like to see on future agendas, and to be prepared to prioritize which things it is that we would like to see first, second, and last.
Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
before we go on, I've asked Loranne to help keep that list as she's doing minutes for this meeting.
That'll be helpful.
So if you guys have something and direct us, say, yes, let's put this on a future agenda, Loranne will have that list for us as well. And council's welcome to keep a list too, so we make sure that we have it all double checked. And then when we get to that, we can go through that list.
Good to know, thank you. Community discussion item 7, so seeking feedback from the community about this town hall process, about the forum, about any other ideas that you guys might have about what you would like to see. That I know that this has been something that the community has asked for. It's something that we've been grappling with. How do we accomplish this and still remain compliant with open meeting law requirements? Is there a different forum that you would, knowing these things, is there a different forum that you would like to see this accomplished through? What went right, what went wrong, and how can we do this better is kind of what I'm looking for there, and then we'll finish our meeting. So with that, I'll anything else from staff?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think you've covered it
Okay.
quite extensively.
Sorry, my apologies. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions. So who wants to be the first? Hearing none. All of this.
Mary White, I'm the precinct woman for 305. I have a lot of confused voters. I'm handing out the sample ballots, and I spent all day on my phone today. Some of the voters are saying they think the ballots are rigged because they wanted to vote for John Hodgkins, or they wanted to vote for Dave Quimby or whoever, and they weren't on their ballot. So I wondered if it would help if we print a map for the boundaries of Rathdrum, because people were thinking because they have a Rathdrum address, they can vote in the Rathdrum elections.
Right. Common misconception. So the map that Leon has pulled up here is from the Kootenai County GIS service, and the overlay that he has turned on is the city limits of the city of Rathdrum. If your residence is within the pink shaded area,
It's blue.
blue shaded area, that
Looks pink to me.
yeah, thank you. That you are a city of Rathdrum within the official governance of the city of Rathdrum. So the police department, the city of Rathdrum Police Department would be the one that would be responding to calls for service within these areas. Snow plowing, city services, you have a city water bill is another good indication that you are probably a resident of the city of Rathdrum. There are many areas outside of our jurisdiction, outside of the boundaries of the city of Rathdrum, that have Rathdrum addresses, and so it's a very common misconception. Regarding the school district has various zoning layers, and so you are undoubtedly a resident of the Lakeland School District. However, they have zones, and the way that their board is structured is that there is a representative for your zoning district. So depending on where you reside, that you can only vote for the trustee that is from that zoning district where you reside, where they too reside.
There's a lot of people confused, so if you could send me that map, maybe I could put it on social media.
Yeah, so this one is the Kootenai County GIS. If you just Google that, Kootenai County, I think it's Kootenai Earth.
Casey Earth.
Casey Earth.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we also have a map that we have that we could, that was at our open house that actually shows the boundaries of the city of Rathdrum. We could also send that out to you in a PDF, so.
So I'm thinking Rathdrum Community News, or is there some other
I'm gonna grab you my card.
way to let?
So Leon, very simple, can we just put Rathdrum City Limits as a news article, and it'll push to our Facebook page so people can see that. That addresses the city of Rathdrum, and maybe a short little blurb about the residents within this boundary are the only ones that are permitted to vote for city business. The school district one, that one's a different one. I don't know where to obtain that specific map. I'm sure that you can get that. Yeah, if you could.
Hi. I was looking yesterday, because some other people were asking me, why didn't I get to vote for Dave Quimby or that particular voting section? And I explained to them where the zones are. There's zone 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think 5. And it's on the school district website.
I looked, and I could not
Yeah,
find it.
you have to search school district trustee zones. Excuse me. And then it'll show that, and then each representative lives in a particular zone.
Right.
And like the mayor explained, you can only vote for the trustee in your zone. Well, there were only 2 people running. The other 4 were not running this term. They'll be up in 2027. That's why they weren't able to vote for the school board. That's a whole different thing away from us, but
Thank
that's,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Mary,
out there, you just have to search.
Thanks for the question, thanks for the icebreaker. Staff, anything that we violated there with the question and answer there?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so this gives us an example of that we can have some discussion with the community, that there are some restrictions that are kind of hobbling us. We're doing our damnedest to make sure that we can have these conversations. And so we welcome the next question. Too easy. Don't let us up light, come on.
So I'll test the boundaries, I guess. It's not about a specific land use item at all, but in general, I am curious.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we have to, for the
Kimberly
record.
Cummins.
Kimberly Cummins and then an address.
Oh, didn't give an address. 155
You can say Rathdrum, but,
Rathdrum.
Is that required?
It's not
I
required.
really would rather have it
Never
not
mind.
on Facebook and YouTube.
I like that too.
Generally, the reason why we do it is not for any requirement, it's that also there are people with addresses that say Rathdrum, like we just talked about, that live outside of the city. And so sometimes council members, and I'm not saying either one of you guys do, but sometimes council members may look at this and weigh the comment based off of whether they live within the city or without the city, and the address helps them determine whether or not they're within the city or outside the city. And that's just tradition more than requirement.
But it's not legally required?
No.
Not in this forum, no.
Is it required in any form?
Public hearings,
Oh, okay.
for the record.
Alrighty, and so we do need the name then for the
We do need
record.
the name because Loren's trying to keep minutes.
Okay, and then I think you stated it, Kimberly.
Kimberly Clemens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I said, not about a specific land use item. I'm wondering what the city has in place to hold builders in general accountable for promises that they make. For example, out on 53, we had a situation where a road was torn up and put back together to allow for turning lanes. And I don't actually know the surrounding things around any of that because I wasn't involved with coming to meetings at that time. But it really messed up the road, and I can only hope that going forward, if there's builders that are supposed to be making improvements to roads or making promises to things, that they'll do it in a manner that is actually long-lasting and that won't cost the city more to fix a mess up that they just kind of slap together. Like, we know builders like to cut corners and do things at the lowest cost for themselves. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that the city has in place to hold builders accountable to do a good job that doesn't cost the taxpayers money later on or very shortly later on to fix mistakes.
So I'll do my best to provide an answer, and then you can correct everything that I say that's wrong, which might be the whole entire thing. In my opinion, that when you annex land into a city, that is where you have the strongest opportunity to put requirements of a parcel of a development. At that time, there may be zoning designations. When there's a project, a subdivision, that it requires roadways, that we have design standards that are required that developers build to our specifications. I know for a fact that our city holds developers accountable to those, such to a degree that when developers try to do things ahead of inspections, that they're required to rip them out, concrete included. And I've personally witnessed it where that has absolutely happened, where and contractors are pissed that they concreted something in, assuming that, hey, this is good, and I have pictures to show you, and it's like, that's not good enough. That they require to rip it back out, expose it. They have to do the inspections, and our city staff does go out and require that. Once a roadway is built, the city, the developer is required to present that to the city to, what's the term?
Accept the infrastructure.
Accepting the public infrastructure. So they are required to provide a warranty with that we won't accept. We have to accept the infrastructure that is developed, that is built: roadways, curbs, gutters, swales, sidewalks, anything that is public infrastructure. We have to accept it, and until they're giving that to us, and until this body has agreed to, which we rely on our city engineer, our building department, our inspectors, to provide assurance that those things that we've gone through the checklist and we've made sure that we've done all of the things. And then the warranty doesn't start until we have accepted it. We've had examples of where they've done work and then they haven't gotten it to us and they haven't met all of our, crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, that the engineer is holding them accountable and saying, you still haven't done this thing, and I'm not presenting it to the council until you do. And so they've asked for, at times, an exception to say, well, the road was completed a year ago, and it took me all of this time to get this one last punch item thing, and I'd like for the warranty to start at the time that the roadway was completed, and we don't accept. That we hold them accountable to the fact that when we accept it, that's when the warranty starts, and they're required to ensure that what they build doesn't crumble, crack, crush, that it's built to the standards that we require.
Mr. Mayor?
John?
Sorry, if you're looking for some light reading, it's in our code, it's Title 7, Chapter 1, Public Works Projects and Performance Bonds.
Okay.
That's where we have it codified, and it talks about
How long
exactly
is
what it
that
you're
warranty?
asking.
Typically 2 years, I believe.
It's a year for water and sewer and 2 years for streets. And if they have a street cut, it's a 3-year warranty, because the street cut means they're cutting an existing street and adding something in the middle. And so we want to make sure for 3 years that cut will hold. So we have a longer warranty period for that. And we inspect those warranty periods. And if there's something that's amiss as we get towards the end of it, we make the developer fix it before we let their warranty expire.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've also had extensions on warranties as well, if we're seeing problems.
Is it possible to suggest a road that could be inspected for a warranty situation, or is that okay to do?
Here, I think that because that's talking about a specific land use item, that I don't.
Wait.
That's
Actually,
not a
I'm sorry.
use item,
If
that's
it's
an
50
infrastructure item.
If it's
Well,
Highway 53, it's not something that we inspect on. That's an ITD inspection. So it'd be ITD permit and inspection if that's the road you're concerned
Because
about.
we just had it was so beautiful, and then it got ripped up, and it's awful now.
But if there's
So-
something on a city road, you can report that to the
Okay.
city, in the downstairs department, in the, engineering department, be like, look, there's a pothole or there's something wrong with this road, and we will go out and inspect it.
So then where would we go for the highway portion? Is that
ITD.
somewhere else that we could
Yeah, that's the Idaho Transportation Department.
Okay.
They have a website, it's itd.idaho.gov. and there's communication, contact us type of things that you can do with them. I'm not 100% familiar with all of their processes because we mostly focus on our own.
Right.
But I have used their contact us form before and submitted things that I've noticed.
They're
To
extremely
ITD.
responsive.
Okay,
So,
thank
They're
you.
extremely responsive.
Mr. Mayor,
So,
can I add to that real quick?
Yeah, please, and then I have a comment about.
The inspections are pretty dang thorough. We just had, for example, the city of Rathdrum's working on our city hall project, and the road that goes up to the new city hall is being constructed. Our inspectors went out there, and the crown, if you will, so that water runs down off of the road properly, is by our requirements supposed to be a 2% grade. It was a 3% grade, and we made them shave that down and redo it, and then before they were allowed to put the asphalt on top of that base. So even on our own projects, we are very critical on that because all of these projects that are infrastructure are massive expensive to redo. So it is better to get it done right the first time than it is to have to go back later and get it fixed.
Or
But-
better said, it's better to be done right on their dime than it is on our dime.
Exactly. I just wanted to use that as an example, Mayor.
Okay, so again, feedback about what just happened here, that we had a discussion about something, and she mentioned, in my opinion, a very specific location that I can go put my finger on a map, and we continue to engage in discussion about that specific thing. However, we didn't discuss that.
So she did not do a specific piece of land, she did a highway, which is a public infrastructure, so she picked any road in the city, that's our property, she picked a park, that's our property. We can talk about public infrastructure, we talk about public property.
But when
That's-
she said 53, you knew exactly where she was talking about, and you can put your finger on a map and say, this is where we're speaking.
But
I
it
said,
was
this is
on,
Highway 53, it's an ITD project, it's a public infrastructure project.
Okay, so within the bounds.
yep,
Okay.
within the bounds.
All right.
And everything that we're telling her is all factual information, we're not providing our opinions
and
on
I'm-
the matter, we're not discussing opinions.
And I'm trying to point out that, I mean, we were really like, ooh, this is not the way that we'd like it to be, and we're having it, and it's like, okay, this is starting to feel like it's okay.
Yeah.
So trying to establish what we can, what are the boundaries that we're working within, so when people start coming up and it's like, I'd like to say something, but I was told I can't say something, and then now we're kind of seeing where we sort of can.
Yeah,
We're-
as
we're-
long as we're providing that factual information or stuff we currently do, actions that the city is already taking,
And I don't know if
Yeah.
it makes a difference that we're not engaged in the conversation.
it doesn't really matter if the council provided those factual things or the things that the city is currently doing or projects the city currently does, or we provide it, all the
Okay.
same, as long as it's
And-
that information.
And John did a great job in
Yes.
saying, this is where our code is, factual information.
And Larry on the school board, that was perfect as well.
Perfect, alrighty. Next.
Yeah, just walking on eggshells up here.
No, you're good.
Hi, Bridget Mastropalo, Rathdrum. I just have a question around, is it possible for us to have any incentives for our local farmers and ranchers? Because I feel like a lot of the time they leave when they're, selling their lands and doing all sorts of things because they can't afford to be here anymore. So is there anything that we can do from a city perspective to try to keep them to stay? Because what I worry about is they all eventually leave. Where's our food gonna come from if we're in a big storm or, one of the highways is totally snowed over, they can't get anything in? We need our ranchers and we need our
Sure.
farmers.
So I don't know of any farm or ranch that exists within the city limits proper. So I don't know what the city could do to incentivize a landowner outside of the bounds of our taxing district.
Okay.
Is there something that you could provide an example of what you could think of that we could perhaps be creative in doing?
That's what I'm wondering, like, I know that there's been times where some of the older properties want to be annexed in because they do want to sell, but, is there another way that we can maybe incentivize them to maybe annex them in, but keep them what they are?
So my opinion.
Gardens, something like that, yeah.
My opinion, and stop me if I can't, that annexation is the biggest risk to
Yeah.
the growth of the community.
Right.
Once you annex them in, it's difficult to control what it is that happens there. There's zoning districts and things. as a landowner of a farm or a ranch, what would be the interest in annexing into the city limits to be required to pay city taxes on their parcel that they're not currently having to pay? They're paying taxes to the county
Right.
and things, but we're not
Right.
one of the taxing districts that's taxing on their property. So what is it that we offer to a farmer that would entice them to want to be part of the city limits, if not for the sake of at some point, and probably some point relatively soon, you would presume, well, actually I can't say that because they annexed in 3 decades ago, but if not for the incentive or for the idea of developing their property, what then is enticing them to want to annex into the city limits?
Exactly, so that's my question. I don't have an answer for it, but I brought it because there's more brains around here. So, more people start thinking about that stuff, we might be able to come up with a solution, because eventually they might all be gone.
Can I ask you a question on a similar vein? There's been comments from some about a desire to incentivize businesses to come to Rathdrum. I'm curious on the community's thoughts about that. Want to establish a little bit of framework there is that business development within a city limits causes a tax shift. When there's businesses that are built, so we start with residential. There's hundreds, literally, of homes that are sold in the city of Rathdrum. Provides a lot of market data to tell you what is the fair market value of that property. There's not a lot of that in the commercial space as to what is the value of this commercial property. So when there's a commercial property that's built or sold, it provides a data point for fair market analysis of what's the value of that property, and it causes the taxes to then shift because the value of those retail spaces or those commercial spaces are increased, and then it starts to take the tax burden away from the residential part and shift it over to the commercial part. So there could be some advantages to citizens of a community to entice businesses. I'm curious on the public's thought about growth of businesses, and I also at the same time I fear that means big box stores and pushing out the small town
You just gave me a light bulb
retailers.
moment. I mean, we don't have any farmers market around here or anything like that where those ranchers, those farmers could sell here locally and give us their produce, their meat, whatever it may be. So do we, have a portion of somewhere commercially where it is focused more on, local growth, organic, that kind of thing? Because I think that's really what we're missing a lot here too, because we don't have a grocery, Super One's our only real grocery store really around here. I know there's another one that's trying to start a Patriot Pantry, but she's small. If she can, have more of that coming in,
So I see what you're saying there, and there is actually a farmer's market in Rathdrum. It's not the city's farmer's market. There's one over at the Lions Club that's held on Saturdays,
Okay,
and it's
so
an opportunity.
didn't
and I
even know it
encourage-
existed.
Yep, I encourage you all to get out there and check it out. There's also, are we still doing the Main Street Farmer's Market?
In the summertime, we do
Yep.
that in conjunction with the concerts.
So the city hosts a farmer's market as well that provides opportunities for those types of things to occur. So anyway, yeah, it's something that is available. Leon.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of points to help out. There's an incentive that the state does for farming. It's an agricultural exemption that they do. So if you have a farm, let's say 300 acres of farmland in the state of Idaho, you can file for an agricultural exemption, basically anything over 5 acres, as long as you're farming it. When you do that, it almost reduces your property taxes to almost nothing. That is a state incentive for farmers to farm their property. The state has the opportunity to provide incentives. One of the things that the city doesn't have the ability to do is a lot of the incentives that other states do because our state law doesn't allow it. Like Texas allows to reduce the property taxes on a new business if it comes to town. Rathdrum, because of Idaho state law, doesn't have that ability to do that. So that's the biggest incentive that there is to kind of help to reduce those property taxes. The state has done incentives for different types of businesses to encourage them to come to Idaho. And the biggest incentive that we have in businesses is the lack of taxes like our neighboring state has, that they're required to do, whether it's, you know, extra insurance or what the case may be, or higher rates. The state of Idaho has adopted income taxes at a flat rate. It doesn't matter how much you make, it's the same amount if you're making $20,000 a year or you're making $500,000 a year. And so those are benefits within the state that the state provides. We have very little ability to create incentives. The only incentive that we have is an urban renewal district that the state allows us to do.
What is that?
Urban renewal district allows the city to take the increment of taxes that would have been collected to help pay for infrastructure within that district. We have two actually, and right now they're not generating enough tax to pay the infrastructure that they put in. For example, the one that's submitted for reimbursement at our West Rathdrum Urban Renewal District submitted a reimbursement for $2 million. There's $26,000 in the pot. Okay, that's not a risk to the city, that's a risk to the developer. So if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
If I could explain an urban renewal district a little bit more. Urban renewal district is common in an area that maybe is underutilized. Yeah, so projects is kind of a good example of that, you know, where you have something that's going there that just isn't working out very well. We've utilized it in, I think, different ways where property that isn't being developed or underutilized that take the base rate of what it is that you're paying for taxes today, and that's what the taxing districts will continue to absorb except for the school district. School district is exempt from this process, if I'm not mistaken. So then you develop the property and now your property tax goes up. That increment that it goes up, that goes into a savings account. That savings account then can be repurposed, reallocated back to the developer to pay for the public infrastructure. So for roads, water, sewer, fire hydrants, sewer station, a well, a lift station type thing, things like that. It has to be public infrastructure. It's not being given back to the developer to pay for building a commercial property or things like that. But the tax increase that you develop the property and here's the increase in taxes and that you're still paying the taxes, or the owner or occupant of that is still paying the taxes, but that excess is going into a savings account and that savings account can go back. And as Leon just stated, that it's a risk to the developer that they put the funds into, you know, that they build the roads, they put in the water, the sewer, the lift station, the wells, whatever it is, they put all of that in, and there's a risk that there won't be enough money generated in tax revenue to come back to them. So if the project isn't successful to generate enough taxes, it might not cover all of the developer's expenses. An example of an urban renewal district in Rathdrum is on the west side of Rathdrum in the where we see Kootenai Electric. That's part of the urban renewal district. So Kootenai Electric's development, their property tax increase from their development goes back to a savings that can be utilized for public infrastructure within that urban renewal district. There's another one in Rathdrum right around the northwest corner of Bakel and Meyer. There are urban renewal districts surrounding us. I think a notable one is in Post Falls down by, what's the name of that area there? Around Cabela's. That's urban renewal district in Rathdrum, or not in Rathdrum, in Post Falls. It doesn't impact us. So.
Okay.
And Mayor, I want to point out that the city of Rathdrum took a lot of caution when we created these urban renewal districts, that any project within the district that is built for residential purposes cannot use that funding for infrastructure. So we do not
We don't subsidize the
subsidize
residential.
residential construction. It's only for the use for commercial projects within the city of Rathdrum. So a business, a manufacturing company, something along that lines.
And to address the URDs, I was gonna bring up Cabela's because I was led to believe they wanted to come to Post Falls initially, and the Post Falls legislature, government, whatever, declined their application for various reasons because they were wanting some tax breaks and things to bring in this business. So then their next option was Liberty Lake, and they decided they didn't want to be in Washington. So I understand Buck Knives was real instrumental in getting that going, and they started the urban renewal development to help them set that up and look at the amount of jobs it's created, the amount of people that's gone there. Now that area is developing leaps and bounds right now. So those are valuable to certain areas.
With that too, I mean, my personal opinion, it's stated that provides a developer an opportunity to reduce the cost associated with their project overall, and so thereby passing that savings on to the end user. So that may be a way to attract development to occur that might otherwise fail to happen. That it provides an incentive. I don't know that actually materializes.
Are we advertising these?
It's the urban renewals agencies.
Yeah, and so we work with the owner of the property, and the owner of the property has been advertising it quite a bit as they try to sell that property. So it's gone through that developer's. The developer is trying to make that work in getting sales and so forth like that. And so in an effort to save us and the district funding, that gets advertised through that developer.
And there's been several projects that have looked at those properties. They've been really close, it seems, several times to having some development. And
Yeah.
but they're the ones that are on the hook. They're the ones that are at risk. The city doesn't have any liability exposure in the, I mean, if that project fails, we're not the ones that are out the money.
Okay.
Can I ask you a personal question, if you don't mind? How long have you been in Kootenai County?
I have lived in Kootenai County for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your concern with our farmland and things like that, years and years and years ago, we grew a lot of Kentucky bluegrass here. And a lot of that land, because of, I feel, in my opinion, it's government regulations, because they used to burn the fields. People were complaining, because no matter what you do, somebody's gonna be unhappy. And then government regulations, there's a gentleman on the prairie that was growing mint for years. And because of certain things that the DEQ and the government regulations was doing to him, it raised his cost to produce his product so high that he just said, I'm done. I'm not gonna do it anymore. I can't afford to do this because I don't get a very good return on my investment. So a lot of these farms that have been out here, and we're talking huge, thousands and thousands of acres, and I'll throw out some names, the Thayers, the Jacklins, all that. Jacklins was a major seed producer. They've turned those farms into subdivisions because of money. And their land isn't valuable to do what they want to do with their land, what they've done with their land for years. So what's their next option? Turn it into something that's profitable for them. A lot of people don't like it, but it's all part of the process, unfortunately. And we're seeing our, of course, that isn't any of our jurisdiction because we have a small footprint here,
Right.
but it still affects us. It affects us
does. It will.
emotionally. Yeah, and I really appreciate your concern and wanting to see that, but unfortunately, I see that going away at a rapid pace.
I just wonder if it can maybe be scaled down on a smaller scale or be looked at differently from the city of Rathdrum, maybe having bigger parcels of land so that people can buy it and they can have their own hobby farms. you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, it's something, food, we all need it. We all need food, we all need water. Those are two major things that we all need. So if we're not thinking about it now, it may bite us in the butt later.
James?
I want to address that specifically. The city does have a zoning district, a residential zoning district called R1A, which allows for 1 1/4 acre lots. That's because you need 1 acre without a house on it in order to have livestock within the city. So you get 1 1/4, so you can have the house and the acre. And farm stands are use permitted outright. That zone was designed for hobby farms.
Okay. I won't say anything. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, and council members, that was a great discussion. I just want to we want to try to keep it into what the city of Rathdrum can do and what the city of Rathdrum has the ability to do. And so I just wanted to kind of put that caution, not necessarily, but just wanted to make sure that there was
It's a good question.
Next.
Somebody trying to beat me?
He was gonna run you over right in the aisle.
Hi, my name is Tammy Scott, and I live on Majestic in Rathdrum. I have a question for you guys. I want to know how we decide if it's good for the community to move forward with zoning changes and how that works. I know 20-some years ago when I wanted to have my residential home be a larger child care where we could have, instead of 4, I think it was 4 children at the time, maybe it was 5, and this was a long time ago, decades ago. I wanted to be able to have 12, and so I had to go to City Hall. I had to ask for a permit for that. I had to pay for the city to pass out flyers, send out flyers to everybody, I believe within 300 feet of my home. And I was warned that if there were concerns that it might not pass. As far as I know, there weren't any. But I'm trying to figure out how that has changed over the years and how we can understand what allows things to change. Like I know people looking at the map, I'm not sure they're in Rathdrum, that have 5-acre lots, and the people next to them have 5-acre lots, and the people next to them have 5-acre lots, right? And they're not allowed to have multiple residences on those lots, from what I understand.
That sounds like county.
Okay, so probably county.
Okay, so to understand your question, you're asking about zoning changes, and that's a very broad topic. So are you talking about changing the ordinances in which establish the zoning to say that an R1 is 10,000 square feet and an R2 has to be at least 7,500 square feet or something to that effect? Or are you saying that when we say that there's a specific piece of property and we want to change the zoning of it on the menu of things, which is it that you're referring to?
The latter.
Okay,
So
talking about
example,
taking a piece of parcel and changing the zoning from what it is to something else.
how do you make that decision now?
Okay, so I think the first process is that they come in and speak with city staff. The first document that you should be looking at is the city's comprehensive plan, to include the future land use map and the current zoning map. So those are kind of the guiding documents that you're looking at to determine whether or not what it is that you're requesting conforms to the comprehensive plan. So that's why it's really important, guys, when we're looking at adopting and updating our comprehensive plan, that we make sure that we are putting forth what is it that we envision our community to be, because those are the documents that guide our decisions as to how it is that we go forward. The ordinances that we have that say that an R1 zone is this and an R2 zone is that, those are the menu that we have, those are the rule book that we have to work within. Some of those zoning ordinances have additional requirements that stipulate that you can't have an R1 adjacent to an industrial space, that you have to have other zoning things, that those are things that can be included in your zoning rules. So those are the rule books, and that it's important that when we make changes to those rules that it's so hard sometimes to think about the things that you're trying to do and write the rule book that we have to follow. The Title 15 that we were looking at updating, the zoning ordinance, the criteria, that updating what the criteria is, what are the rules that we have to follow when adopting that, when looking at that. So the process then it goes, they have an application, it goes to Planning and Zoning Commission to determine whether or not it conforms to what our rules are. Does it match the criteria? Does it meet the requirements that are spelled out? So think about this like a football game, that we're the NFL that gets to decide what the rules are, and then people have to come to us and play our game, and they have to follow the rules in these rule books. So it's really important that our rule books state what it is that we intend to do, because it's going to be leveraged against us, that we have to follow these rules. On land use items, if you can put your finger on the map and say we're talking about this piece of parcel, it's a land use item, and it's something that is a quasi-judicial. So when a land use item comes before the council, we have to act as a court, that we're making a decision as a judge. So trying to look at what is the stipulated criteria, what does the law say, and we're the ones that pass the law, or this body, not necessarily these individual people, but what does the rule book say, what does the law say that we have to do? Does this meet that, that we have to fit those things? And so there's a lot of rules about how that process takes place. You talked about that you had to pay for the notification of adjacent properties with a 300-foot boundary. That's state law. That requires, and this body here attempted to increase that requirement, that we wanted to 300 feet, yeah, but we want more. There's more criteria that we wanted. And as we started doing that, there's also a state law that says that if it exceeds a certain dollar amount, that then they don't have to do it at all. And so it was like, well, that's counterintuitive to what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to make sure the community knows about things that are going on. And as we were trying to adopt it and change it to where we want more people to know about it. We want everybody that lives in the area, not just the property owners that live in Texas that own that property that aren't here. We want the people that are actually there. We want people that are even farther out to know about that. But then we were quickly faced with, well, yeah, if you do that, though, that they don't have to do it at all. Then they just get to put an ad in the newspaper and nobody gets notified about it.
But at what point do you decide that it's not beneficial for the community? For example, we put those three, say in the 300 feet or whatever, there was maybe 100 residents that received that notification. And 10 of them complain. They don't want that to happen. What is there a percentage that we look at, or is it just you decide?
Maybe I can help with this a little bit. Yeah, so we allow the public to be notified of land use actions happening within 300 feet of them. They are able to come in and speak at public hearings and provide testimony. We're looking for testimony that pertains to the relevant criteria, that pertains to that rule book that we are all stuck to follow. So it doesn't really matter how many complaints, it matters what kind of complaints they have, and if they are relevant to that applicable criteria, because then the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission can then use those concerns that are related to the relevant criteria to then either deny that application, put additional conditions on that application. Basically, those are the two options: deny or put conditions on. Or if there's no complaints that are relevant to the applicable criteria and it still meets all the criteria, then they're required to accept that application because it meets the rules of the playbook. Does that make sense? And it's not necessarily based on the number of complaints. It's based on
the legal criteria.
The criteria, the playbook that we have to, and that's on purpose. The state code requires us to have this express criteria that puts everyone on notice of what you have to meet to be able to pursue a land use action. So we are required to have a playbook. It's not like we can just change it willy-nilly. We have to have it so that everyone is put on notice of what that playbook is, so that when they come here, they know, yes, I meet these criteria, no, I don't meet these criteria.
And with that, so I'd say that the council, I think, values the feedback that we get from the community. More minds are greater than ours. That there are things that people look at and they realize that, hey, what about this? And I was like, oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't realize that was there, or that you stumbled across a piece of code that I didn't have focus of, and now that you've zeroed in my attention to that, it's like, yeah, I think they're right that doesn't seem to meet this criteria and stuff. So that's very helpful to the council to help us bring something to our attention about something that isn't conforming to what the rules. And it's so incredibly critical that, that we have community involvement when we're making changes to codes that are affecting what this playbook is, what the rule book says that we have to do. It's so helpful to the council to have people that are researching things and saying, I really don't think that we want this to be the criteria, this weak playbook that we have that says that these are the only things that you have to do. That what about this issue? What about water, and what about traffic impacts? And where do we do those things? And how do we? What kind of requirements do we have? If your subdivision is X number of houses, what kind of extra criteria do we think should be imposed on them? Those are really critical things for us to be including in our rule books.
And part of the complaints, like Emily was talking about, isn't the quantity, it's the quality of it. In other words, if your neighbor says, well, I don't want them to do that because it blocks my view, that's not a complaint. If it's health, safety, concerns, traffic, those kind of things, those are the things that we have to look at and make sure it's viable for everybody.
And that it fits the legal criteria.
Right,
That's the most important piece, is that how can I tie that back to what does the law say? And it's laws that we pass here generally. What does the law say, and how do we make that fit within this? James?
I think what you're talking about was a conditional use permit, because the city allows 5 children to be in a home daycare without any permitting, but once you go over 5, you have to get a conditional use permit. And once you're getting a conditional use permit, what we're really doing is we're authorizing a commercial enterprise in a residential
More about
zone.
permitting uses
So it's
rather
more
than
about the impact of the commercial use to the surrounding residents than anything else there.
that
Yeah.
situation.
And that's.
I just was trying to figure out how that was different and the same and how that might apply. So I just wanna understand what you were saying as far as the R1, R2, I don't know what any of that stuff means. I mean, it's foreign language to probably the common man. But I'm assuming it's how big the lots are and how
It
many
is.
houses can be on them.
Yep.
So are you saying that the way that it's written now is you have to have certain zones next to certain zones? You can't just like put commercial next to a big
Yeah, there
residential
are,
area kind of thing?
not in all cases, but there are certain criterias that we have that say that we can't have industrial next to R1, that we have to have intermediate or buffering uses. Yeah, and that's based on best city planning practices.
We don't want like meat packing plants right next to houses, so we want like an intervening use in between them that's a little
Yeah.
more residential friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it was like trailer park and then really nice houses and then trailer park, and it was just very different.
And some of that too, that there's.
I've lived here a very long time.
There's-
But I was like-
There's some of the criteria that we have too that deals with the height of apartment buildings and adjacent to single-family residential. So making it to where you don't have like a 3-story apartment that is looking down into your
house.
backyard. Yeah.
That
So
was one of our
having
big
having
concerns, yeah.
that there's a requirement of a tapering tier. Buffering, thank you, that, and minimum distances. So depending on the distance it is from your property, that if they're far enough away that the 3-story is allowed, but if they're directly adjacent, that there might be a minimum distance, that if you're within this distance, you can only go to this height, and if you're within this distance, you can go to that height, and so on, that it provides tiers. And that those are the rule books that we create, that tries to provide so that then when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I want to build an apartment complex right here, and you say, oh, the hell you will, and not in my backyard, and it's like, well, it doesn't say in the rule book that we can't. And so that's where it's so critical that we get this right, that we write the rules that say that, no, we've already established that we're not going to allow this type of development next to that, because it's stated expressly in our rules that that's the case. So that gives us the legal criteria, the legal framework in which we have the authority then to deny what it is that they're saying, and that they have to fit within the rules that we've created, that we've established. So we've heard people say that I don't want a 3-story apartment complex right outside of my backyard, looking into my yard, my windows, everything like that. So we've acknowledged that, and we've created rules that say that you have to be this far to be this tall, and this far to be this tall, that exists in our code.
Okay, thank you, that answers my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Kurt Clemens. So my first question is kind of like a clarifying question. As I understand it, when creating the comprehensive plan, there are calculations that are put in place to determine like the potential load and impact on infrastructure like water, power, and stuff of that nature. Am I understanding that correctly?
Say that again, sorry.
When making the comprehensive plan, there are calculations that are made either by this body or by the city engineer that help determine the potential impact of land use on the comprehensive map, like within our city boundaries, of on things like water supply, power, and other infrastructure, traffic, things of that nature. Is that?
I'm not following the connection between the comprehensive plan and the impact, so what are you, or maybe our staff, are you guys picking up?
I think I have an answer for that. When we do master planning efforts or try to project forward what we're looking at for water system, sanitary sewer system, roadway network, we make assumptions on what future development may occur on certain land parcels in different zones. If there was an action that changed our assumption, then that would be something that we would have to take into consideration if we're looking at changing what the comprehensive plan had identified that particular land use to be.
Okay.
Kind of makes sense?
So can I help fill in a little bit of the, I'm seeing disconnect here, and maybe you guys are talking, but I just want to make sure I'm coloring the picture a little bit more. The future land use map is what helps inform those assumptions. So in the comprehensive plan, there's a future land use map that identifies that in general that this will be low density residential, medium density residential, this will be commercial space, this will be industrial space. And so that helps inform the engineers about what kind of uses it is that we think could go there, maximum impact that might have, to try to inform that. Now, as a project comes before the city to say, yeah, but I want to do something different here than what the comprehensive or the future land use map indicated, it might be a time that needs to reevaluate that, well, we didn't anticipate that being there, and so our assumptions about the impact of what the future land use might be in this location could change with that. Is that kind of?
That's probably much better stated than
is that what you're you're asking?
Kind of. So when I was reading up on like how our future land use map works with our comprehensive plan, like as a community, what we decide ideally our city will look like until the next comprehensive update. I heard mention a lot of like calculations that are made as part of that potential impact to the area. So my question was really like, who makes those calculations? And a follow-up was, what level of communication does this city council have with like neighboring city councils? And what kind of drove the question, just maybe this will help fill in all the gaps if I just get it all out at once, is I was reading an article in the local news about how the Kootenai Water District was voicing concerns over the potential impact to the water supply if growth doesn't slow down and kind of get curbed a little bit. And one of the hiccups that they were pointing out was that every city kind of has its own future land use map and its own comprehensive plan and its own policies and procedures and its own city councils, and they're all just kind of doing their own thing. And they're not talking to each other about the potential impact on like water supply, because we all share the same aquifer. And so for our city engineers to make a calculation based on the potential impact to our water supply for a new industrial park or housing development or whatever the case is, if that's just jointed and separate from what Hayden is calculating and Post Falls is calculating, and then the Kootenai Water District is out there saying we see something different, I guess my question is, what kind of oversight, or at least on this city council, what kind of efforts are made to communicate across county and city lines.
Okay, so I see three different responses here, three different points to kind of point out. First of all, what kind of collaboration between neighboring jurisdictions? There's a Mayor's Alliance that the mayors of Kootenai County participate in, where we have a joint meeting of mayors, and then we also meet with the Board of County Commissioners biannually.
Yeah.
Is it?
And if there's a issue that comes up, we can call a meeting together and do that as well. So, but biannually we
Is
meet.
generally the cadence that we're having that meeting at, and so we're having one. Let me see. I want to say 2 a year with the county, where the mayors and the county, and then sometimes we don't like the county and we want to talk about the city stuff without the county because we're in a lawsuit with them, and so we don't want them at the table. So we have another meeting that we have without the county, so that then we can talk about city stuff without the county, like listening into what we're talking about. So we meet and talk about things. The city administrator also has, there's a city administrator group that meets. I wouldn't be surprised to hear, I know that there's a city attorney alliance. I wouldn't be surprised to hear about engineers, and I know that you guys talk to each other, you guys communicate frequently, but is there an actual structured meeting?
We actually have structured meeting on transportation-related issues through our Kootenai County area transportation team, which meets
KMPL.
once per month. But we all know each other very well and can talk to each other on various topics.
So on water specifically, so I said I got three topics here, and I'm actually losing track of what my third one was, but on water specifically, in my opinion, from these educated folks over here that can talk absolute nerd, like to such a degree that my eyes roll around and I can't quite understand and keep up with everything that they're saying. But the things that they're telling me, it seems like they understand the water issue quite extensively, and understand the aquifer and have confidence in their assumptions about the quantity of water available, and have assurances about our system. I can't say the same for every single water jurisdiction throughout the region, throughout the everything that every water jurisdiction that exists on the Rathdrum aquifer, which Rathdrum aquifer doesn't refer to our aquifer, it's just the Rathdrum area aquifer, so it's very large. I think a lot of that has to do with the specific infrastructure that is in place. How many pumps do they have? What volume do they have? What size piping do they have? What volume of water storage do they have to be able to mitigate peak performance periods and things like that? And again, nerds over there can.
And I'll try to keep this as simple as possible. Every water district is required to only pull as much water from the ground as what we have authorization to do so for. That's through water rights. Those water rights are all regulated by one agency, which is Idaho Department of Water Resources. So I can't, as the city of Rathdrum, let's say that the mayor said, hey Kevin, here's $10 million, I want you to do a drop of water well in every, so I would have to go get permission and demonstrate that we have a need, or that we can, actually apply to get additional water rights to be able to do so. And all of us as water jurisdictions, or districts, are all under that same criteria.
Kevin, can you also mention about the water right age and how the hierarchy of water right suspension occurs? You
I'm not
follow?
sure I'm necessarily tracking it. There's different types of water rights: agricultural, municipal, irrigation.
Domestic.
Senior, junior, I think is where he's going.
Oh, okay.
You should answer, Chris.
All of the water rights that we have are basically designated by age. So you get here first, you have the water rights first.
He's tracking.
So, your water rights, if your water rights are oldest, you have the right to the water. So if the aquifer were to run out, for example, and we have our original 1890 water rights for surface water, we're still guaranteed that much, and any right that comes in junior to that, so the younger they are, that's who gets cut off first and it goes backwards.
And then can you talk about what the health status or age of our in comparison to others?
Ours are all senior water rights. I think they range in age. I think our original one is 19 something. And then most of them were established in the 60s because they're old ag water rights that had to be signed over to the city of Rathdrum when they got annexed.
Okay. So I guess in summary, the answer to my question is the collaboration level, there are associations for each of your departments that you're all collaborating with each other on. And then
Though we speak to one another, and I hesitate to say collaboration on development because I don't feel that that's the level of conversation that's being held at those. I'll be frank with you that my opinion is I've been frustrated with the area city impact process, and the state law has changed. I'm still not pleased with where we're at with that requirement. One of my concerns is that the neighboring jurisdictions seem to be, in my opinion, in a race, in a land grab race to gobble up as much of the prairie as we can to beat the neighboring jurisdiction to that finish line before they do. And that's something that I feel like is sometimes a feeling of pressure of council members that if we don't annex this project into our city, it could get annexed into the neighboring jurisdiction. And that what I wish we would have, and I've said this many, many times for many years, I wish we would have a pre-established boundary that in 100, 200 years, this is where the boundary of the city of Rathdrum will be, this is where Post Falls will be, this is where Hayden will be, this is where Kootenai County will be. And then in that scenario, that you're not feeling pressured to annex a property into your jurisdiction because you're fearful that somebody else is going to beat you to the finish line, that you can pace yourself out to that point. So that's one pressure that I'm frustrated with that I wish wasn't happening. The last point that I wanted to make, as I mentioned, Rathdrum Aquifer is much, much larger than what the city of Rathdrum is. It stretches from, God, how large is it?
North of Ponderay Lake down to Coeur d'Alene Lake and way into the Spokane area.
So massive, massive area. Water is bigger than Rathdrum. And one of the things that we've recently talked about, I would like to have let me back that up a little bit. Let me preface this with, I believe that the community has a legitimate and reasonable concern about water quality, quantity, and the future of our region in regards to water. Look at other areas, California, of drought and things like that, but we're concerned, reasonably, our community is concerned about the availability of water, not just for us, but for our children, for our grandchildren, for our ancestors, for things to ensure that the community that we're developing isn't going to end up being that there is no more water. So I believe that we have some very, very intelligent people there that are very knowledgeable about water, and they have provided me assurances that that shouldn't be too much of a concern, that they have reasonable confidence in what it is that's available for our water for various reasons and for their knowledge base. But I don't believe that our community is as confident in their knowledge and things, that it's very easy for a city staff person to tell you that you're concerned with water, don't worry about it. We got this covered, we're okay. You don't have a lot of confidence in that answer, do you? I can't imagine why you would.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
so
reading an article like the one I mentioned
Rathdrum.
where the news article is kind of,
Yep.
there's always a possibility they're just kind of fear-mongering and saying,
Absolutely.
there's all these
And
red
I'm with
flags.
you. Okay, so I feel that the Rathdrum Aquifer is bigger than Rathdrum. That's a problem that's not just a Rathdrum problem, it's a regional problem. And so I would like for us to have an official water study conducted that would analyze the size of the aquifer, the available water resources, the developments as it is today, and what we project into that.
You're talking about something that would be a future decision by council to pay for and contract for a future study. So we need to kind of steer clear of potential future decisions. You're
But there
really
is-
sorry.
yeah, so-
Shame.
I'm really sorry to
Boundary
share
discussion.
that. I don't want to affect a future decision about a potential contracted study, so let's try to steer clear and just say the city would like to go to study this further. Maybe.
City wouldn't, I would.
Well, this is all about the city's standards,
Okay.
not
Okay.
personal opinions.
I'll zip it.
City-
I don't have anything else.
I just want to put out there too, that is collaboration discussion that you have. I have a meeting this month with a governmental council group that we're getting a presentation from the Aquifer Protection group, as well as, anyway, they're coming to this meeting and they're making a presentation to us. And so that is something that I know Chris watches very carefully. The Idaho Department of Water Resources has wells, a lot of wells in the state of Idaho, but more specifically within the city of Rathdrum, and they monitor the progress of those wells. There's actually one that resides on Lakeland High School school grounds, and so they test and monitor that, and then they also have a graph that shows what those levels are and how they're performing. And that's all public online with Idaho Department of Water Resources that monitors that, and so we do take and talk about it amongst our different groups quite a bit.
And so just to wrap up my segment, I'll let someone else have the time. So I guess water is really easy to pick on because it's just the biggest, easiest to identify concern in responsible growth. But kind of like you mentioned, there does seem to be this, and I think that's an accurate assessment, this race to see who can have the biggest, most awesome city in Coogan County. And so maybe just as something to put out there as a seed for thought, taking advantage of the existing channels of collaboration to attempt to set up some sort of oversight committee that is outside of each independent city in charge of making sure that responsible growth is being observed on everyone's part, so it isn't an unfair competition just because the mayor of Post Falls doesn't have the same values as the mayor of Rathdrum and has no problem with approving an industrial park that's dumping sludge into our aquifer just to continue picking on water. But the city of Rathdrum, for example, has the ability to kind of appeal to a higher power and say, hey, the mayor of Post Falls is being a dummy and someone needs to do something about it.
And that's so I don't have any authority over the mayor of Post Falls, as you just as an example that you mentioned, nor the governing body, the council, and vice versa. Coeur d'Alene can't tell us what we can and can't do, and it's really the council's authority. The council has so much power in that regard, more so than what I do, in adopting and passing things or denying annexations in particular. I typically don't have a vote in that regard. That's a council decision, and it's done in that way intentionally, that it doesn't give the power to one person, that it requires the support of a majority of the council.
You said a key word a minute ago. You said responsible growth, and we as a body, I assure you, we don't have ulterior motives up here. We took an oath to the city to do what we feel is best for the city. And part of that, I think I can speak for everybody, that we are in tune on responsible growth, and it has to be done a certain way, certain criteria, and I think we're all on the same page. But like he says, we have no control way over there off of, Poli Avenue or whatever, that's way out of our jurisdiction.
Right.
But we are focusing and trying to do our due diligence here to provide responsible growth for the city of Rathdrum.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may add, an oversight group, the wonderful thing that we have within the state of Idaho is the state of Idaho is our oversight group. So, and the court system. So basically, if there's something that we're doing that is not good for the state of Idaho, then the state legislature either mandates that we do something new, or they mandate that we take that away, that you can no longer do that. They also have different departments that oversee things like Department of Environmental Quality and the Department of Water Resources. They are the oversight group on cities and counties. But because, as the mayor's explained, we all have those jurisdictions, which you see on the map up there, the blue, the greens, the pinks. All of those are different entities, different organizations, and they can only govern what's in their area. They don't have authority to push their desires onto those other areas, but the state does.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Ma'am? Chris,
There you go, Chris.
Oh, you broke it.
other way.
For short people. Hi, my name is Chris Maraker, and I live in Rathdrum. And hello to the mayor, the council, and the staff. Tammy brought up something about paperwork going out, you know, when she first started her business. And I've been here almost as long as Tammy, and I've gotten those little notices, you know, do you agree to do this or that, you know, that's fine. What if a street like Pine Street is all residential and suddenly you have a group that does cars, old cars, right next to some really nice houses, and then you get this mess of a business. And now there's another group just a few houses down that's starting to have a little mess in front of their place because we haven't really been able to do anything. Is there anything that can be done? Or put that on your list of things to think about?
I would say code enforcement is kind of the area that it sounds like you're talking about, that it's possible that there's something that's going on there that the city may not be aware of its existence.
Well, Rathdrum is it Kurt? I can't remember who I talked to, about it, and it sounded like there wasn't anything that you could do. But I never got a notice asking permission for those people to put in a body shop.
That could mean that it is an unpermitted commercial use in a residential zone. Generally speaking, if there is a commercial use in a residential zone, it would have been noticed and permitted through a conditional use permit. So if you didn't receive, if the notice didn't go out, potentially it could be unpermitted. Code enforcement would then be the ones that would address that.
And is it a business or is it a hobby?
And that would be up to code enforcement. Code
Right,
enforcement
right.
would look into it, and it has done that in the past with other issues around town. So it's not a new issue that has come up before. So if there was an issue like that around town, then you can report that to code enforcement.
Our code enforcement is one person,
Yeah.
so we rely on complaints. He doesn't have time to go search the streets looking for things, and council does not want us looking to punish citizens. So if you have a complaint, give us a call, send us an email, come visit us downstairs, and we'll open a complaint, we'll investigate and find out what's going on.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, Chris.
Let Rick go, he's been very patient.
How much time do we got?
3 minutes.
Because I got a long list here.
2 questions, Rick.
And then you have to step away and then you
There
come back.
most of them are comments. First of all, I'm Rick Pine. I reside in Brookshire. Want to give out a couple attaboys. John, congratulations.
Thank you.
Speed limit signs, Leon, thank you. The whole development got the signs up, speed limit signs. Thank you very much. Let's see, what else? James, thank you for your meeting last week. Very informative. You probably got too many red dots, so. Yeah, that's
All
what we
the ones I
thought.
handed out.
Okay.
That's
So,
okay. The feedback is important.
the first thing I would like to talk about is the water pressure problem. I was in the shower yesterday. Guess what? I'm not happy. I've talked to Leon for a couple hours on this issue. Okay, they say that they've got this plan going in, they're doing a survey on this, they're doing a survey on that. We wanna know when the problem's gonna get fixed. Because now across on Meyer, they're building, and all these homes are coming online, and guess what? They're taking more water and more water. And that leaves Brookshire with less water. Until we figure out where the new pump's going in, when's it going in, to help us out. Instead of looping all the way up around town and coming all the way back down. Oh yay, Brookshire gets water now. So do we have an answer? Question?
What was the question? I mean, I heard
They're
a lot.
doing a survey,
Yeah.
they're putting the new water line off of 41 to go down Lancaster to come into Majestic and Brookshire that way.
Well, they're
Instead of
not-
having to loop all the way around town.
What do you mean by a survey?
Land survey.
A land survey,
land
okay.
survey.
When you said survey, I thought you were talking
Yeah,
like a
no,
poll.
they're doing a
like-
land survey because they're talking to one person off of Lancaster because you guys don't have right of way.
Mhm.
So you have to go to them and get this right of way hashed out, I guess. So I'm just asking the question, when is it gonna get done? Because if you notice, you got that whole new development going in south of the railroad tracks. And that's just gonna pull more water. And everybody says they have the comprehensive plan. Did everybody look at that? I don't think so, because if they did, we wouldn't have a water issue problem, a pressure problem. So I'm asking the council, do we have any answers to that?
So there was, there's water pressure meters that are being evaluated. There was a very interesting conversation about impellers. No, I'm not using the word right.
Pressure reducing valves?
No, the thing that you were talking about, the impeller exploding.
Booster pumps?
No, the one where the volume gets too fast and then it implodes the
Cavitation?
that thing, whatever that means.
Cavitation.
Cavitation?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Builds, it loses pressure.
So it's a new
Goes up there.
problem then?
No.
Or it's an existing problem?
No, it's not a problem. It's
Ongoing problem?
No. It's a risk. It's a risk. So there's a water line that is at Railway in Lancaster, and looking at changing the way that water is delivered to your area specifically.
Correct, down Lancaster.
No.
They have to put
No.
they have to put a pump there.
No, you're talking about something else.
No, I've talked to your
Rick,
city administrator. and
I
he-
hear what you're saying. You are talking about something different than what I am talking about.
Oh, okay.
What I am saying is that there is a pipe at Railway and Lancaster that they're looking at opening that to provide additional pressure to your
Okay.
area, additional water to your area.
Okay.
There is a pipe that is being worked on, adding from 41 to Meyer area, that will provide access to water pressure from a different area in the water system, that helps to stabilize the water pressure. So we're hopeful that those efforts, and those aren't cheap, that water line going in is very, very expensive, that infrastructure will help improve the water, the experience that you have at your home.
Okay.
So it is something that we're working on. These things don't happen overnight.
No, that's why the comprehensive plan should have been looked at a long time before those houses ever went in to say, hey, are we gonna have a water pressure problem?
Mhm.
And now we are, and it's being monitored, and it seems that some days are better than others, but then when we get these houses done and the project's not done, what happens? Do we go from 30 PSI down to 15 PSI, like it did to me the other day in the shower? I don't know.
Yeah, so I know that they're working on evaluating the water system and trying to make improvements to it, to try to improve the water pressure. One of the issues, I mean, we're trying to deal with peaks, and if you turn up the water pressure too much, that then you run risk of damaging homes,
Right.
water systems and things like that. So there's a balance that they're trying to provide for. You have to provide enough pressure to be able to get your water your home water. But if you provide too much pressure, that then there's risk on the other side
Well,
of
that's
things
what
too.
I'm concerned about, is if they have their homes go in and they're raising the pressure up, what's that gonna do to everybody else?
And that's why they're not making rash decisions, that they're being very calculated in how it is that they address it, and they monitor it closely to see what's going on, and making incremental adjustments to make sure that we're not risking cavitation or whatever the heck that
Okay.
thing is, that where the impellers implode, where our pumps fail, and it's expensive, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to increase the pressure to where it's causing damage to your home or anyone else's home, and potentially risk back to the city for liability. And what you're dealing with is the peak. Unfortunately, everybody wants to take a shower at the same time. Everybody wants to water their grass at the exact same time that everybody wants to take showers too. That's what the biggest impact is, and the size of the straw and how many people are sucking off of that at the same time, where it's getting down into
That's
more
what
localized.
I'm mainly concerned about, Mayor, is you got another 490 homes going in above me now, and they're gonna all take the shower and turn on their sprinklers at the same time. Is the city gonna come out and say, no, you can't turn them on at between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m.?
That's actually a great idea.
It really is.
That really is a great idea.
I do encourage anyone here or anyone that's online to consider changing your water sprinkler time to.
Maybe let's not put some water sprinklers in. Let's not have the home developers put them in then. Because everybody wants green grass when they got the sprinklers in. If they got the they're not apt to do that anymore, so. And just a bit of advice or a comment is that the city of Harrisburg, on the other side of Coeur d'Alene,
Harrison?
Harrison, sorry, they have a moratorium on, they cannot build anymore because of water. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and we haven't reached that level that there's a legal criteria in order to.
Just throwing it out there, Mayor.
Yeah, I hear
Because
you.
somebody had to truck in, because they got a pool, and they trucked in all their water. So, HOA is not very happy. City inspectors, when it comes to the developers, when a community is done, how long does the city inspectors have to make changes on problems that they see? Because they say enforcement doesn't go out there and say, I'm not enforcing that. But if a developer just finishes up Brookshire, how long does the city have to go back to them and say, nope, you didn't do that right?
So when a developer is building something, that it is they pull a permit. Their permit is only good for a defined period of time, and I want to say that's 1 year. Is it 1 year that a permit?
After they complete the development?
No.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hang on, I'm getting there. You've got to have a permit to allow work to be conducted, right? And that permit gives them a period of time that it's active, and it's not forever, it expires. And when it expires, then for them to continue work, they have to pull another permit. So they either have to pay for an extension or they have to pay for a whole new permit all over again. So it's costly to them. They have to schedule inspections to occur once as their work is progressing. As I mentioned, that if you have a pipe that you're required to put into the ground, you can't just put it in and bury it and move on. That you have to have an inspection. So you have to call and tell them when you're ready to have that inspection performed.
I think the inspection I'm talking about is a closeout inspection.
Of
In
what?
other words, when the development's done, the city comes in to make sure all the curbs are right, all the sidewalks are right.
That happens way before.
Okay, so then if we have cracked sidewalks when it was being developed, and I raised this point, they all said, oh, when we get done building the homes, we're gonna come back and take out the squares that were cracked. And then I've talked to the city downstairs, and they said, well, yep, the builder will come back and do that, Hayden Homes, Dom, or whoever.
Right.
Nope, they just passed it on and just went on their way, and, oh, we're done.
So as we were talking about before, that the acceptance of public infrastructure, that the warranty doesn't begin until that point, until they get
When
that.
is that point? That's what I'm trying to find out.
When the city council accepts the public infrastructure. So that's
Right after
typically before any homes are actually built. So you have a piece of dirt you're going to dig up, you're going to put in the water and sewer and fire hydrants. You're going to have an inspection for those piping before you bury them. If you try burying them, they're going to make you dig them back up, I promise you.
So if they pour
then-
sidewalk
Hang on.
and it cracks
Yep.
within their time frame, they have required to fix it, correct?
Yes.
The developer is not the builder.
Right.
We bring the developer back in and have him fix it.
Well, then the developer needs to come back to Brookshire, cause I've got probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 squares that have been cracked from when I moved in 3 years ago.
Are they in the expansion joints or are they across the panels?
They're across the panels.
Okay, so then
So,
come
it
into city.
depends, okay? Rick, and I'm gonna try to clarify that, okay? The warranty starts generally before a single house is built,
Okay,
okay? That warranty period for that is 1 to 2 years, depending on what it is. What you're talking about in sidewalks and streets are 2 years, okay? From the time that the city accepted it, okay? So if a sidewalk panel cracks 2.5 years after we accepted it.
2 years in a day.
Yep, 2 years in a day, anything over the 2 year period, then the city inspectors do not require them to fix that. So a lot of the houses were built long after the warranty period expired.
so you just let them crack, and the builder has no, or Hayden Homes has, who poured the sidewalks, or whoever did the work, they just say, oh, it's after 2 years.
No, because when you buy your home, generally speaking, when I bought my home, I'll use my example, and it was built from the ground up, I had a warranty period for myself as well, okay? And I got to call the builder if there was anything that was wrong with my property within that time.
Sidewalk is not our property, it's the city's
Yeah.
property.
Okay, well, once we pass the warranty, then the city doesn't do anything, it'd be the responsibility of the home.
You guys never inspected it then, because it's been there since I had my house built. And you guys should have been the ones that had them come out and fix it.
And
So now I'm stuck with all this cracked sidewalk that the homeowners are gonna have to pay to have it done. That's wrong for the city to do that. And it's gonna happen in the next one and the next one after that, because we don't have people that come out and inspect. Unless there's a person like me that goes downstairs to fill out a complaint form. Which is wrong. The city should be doing their due diligence when it comes to brand new subdivisions to make sure it's correct. So I guess the only recourse is to call Hayden and have them call you guys.
I jump in here. I know for a fact that our public works inspector, Chris Valenzuela, when he goes to do the final inspection upon the completion of a home, he will make them replace those panels. He wasn't here
James,
3 years ago.
I'm telling you now.
I'm telling you, he wasn't here 3 years ago, but now the city does that.
But what happened 3 years ago, that when it should have been done?
We didn't have we didn't have a person doing what we have now. Our
Okay,
staff
then,
has grown
then it
over
should be
time.
on the city's responsibility. It should be on their dime to come out and fix it.
It's not.
Of course it's not.
It's not in any city. I mean, if you go to,
It would have been if you had a city inspector look at it before the warranty was expired and had it done. That's what it is. So I guess the city's lacked on that as well. Backflow test. I know of several people that don't do their backflow test. If it contaminates the aquifer, we're in big trouble because we have no drinking water. And who's required to do that?
the homeowner.
Who's required to go out to make sure that it got done?
It's the homeowner's responsibility to have a backflow test prevention
True,
performed. And,
very true.
And for them to
But the
notify the
data
city.
that the city has on every home, whoever does the backflow test, I get a copy of it, the city gets a copy of it.
Yep.
Okay, so you know exactly who didn't have a backflow test done. Yes, you do. It's right there in the data. I could pull it, and it would cost me a lot of money, and I could just go like this, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we are working on right now is the software to be able to do that. A lot of cities do have those backflow testing tracking. We have not had that.
We're just receiving a piece of paper.
We're receiving a piece of paper. We're putting it into the documentation for that home, but we don't have a report that kicks us out and says these are.
So without going to a piece of file, without going to a file cabinet and looking through every single parcel, we don't have a means of collecting that data and knowing
And we're trying to get that, and we're trying to put that into our BSNA program that we have, so that we can do that. Now, one of the things that will happen when we start doing that is that after a certain time period, because there's a deadline to get that in, that we will be sending out notice to the homeowner that they haven't had their backflow tested properly. And then if they don't, then their water will get shut off until they do get that backflow testing done properly. Now, up until now, we haven't had the software or the ability to do that. We have implemented that within the BSNA program that we have, and that is helping us to be able to do that. It's also requiring additional staff time, which our staff has been very tight on staff time, and we're trying to get those things implemented. And it takes time to get those things done. But it is a requirement of the homeowner.
So Rick, let me.
I'm just trying to help Leon out.
I appreciate
So-
it.
He needs another person to do that kind of work.
So you mentioned.
And we don't have another place to put another person to do that kind of work. Like, there's no
Yeah.
more room in this.
So you mentioned that you know several people that.
I'm not gonna be the
I-
dime dropper, Larry.
I'd like to finish what I was gonna say, please. You said you know several people that haven't done their backflow testing. Okay, it is my understanding that, so they must be blowing out their sprinklers themselves. Because it's my understanding, if you have it professionally done, they are required by law
Negative.
to fill out that form. and report
Negative,
it to the
because I
city.
can have Scotty's come in and blow out my sprinklers, and the next springtime, I can turn on the water myself,
Yeah, that's fine. But-
and that's when the backflow test is done.
So-
When you turn your sprinklers on, not when you blow them out, when they get turned on. And that's what a lot of the homeowners do. They just turn their valves back on. And it just blows that line through.
So you're saying that professional businessman's not required?
I know of two of them that aren't, that will come out and turn on your sprinklers and walk away. It's an additional fee if you want them to do a backflow test. So maybe the city needs to require that
Okay.
if you have sprinklers, you gotta have your documents.
Well, that's a state law. That's, it's not a city code, it's a state law.
So stop having the developers or the builders put sprinklers in. Easy fix, Mayor. Water pressure, easy fix. Moving on, 'cause I got a lot.
Rick, I do, and Mayor, we ask that we limit to 2 questions and then let other people have a turn, so that we don't.
Okay, I'll sit down and wait.
And then you can wait a
I'll
couple
wait.
times and
I'll
do a
wait.
couple
I
more,
got
that's fine. I appreciate it, Rick, I'm just trying to be fair to everybody.
Oh, absolutely. I asked him how much time I had.
No, we didn't limit you.
Good questions.
Kimberly Clemens again. Mine should be quick. I've heard of other cities having, we were talking about responsible growth earlier, and I've heard of cities where they have like a certain percentage that they will allow to grow each year, and once they reach that maximum, they will stop for the year so that the growth is tampered to a level that the infrastructure can keep up with. And I'm wondering if Rathdrum has thought about that or is looking into the possibility of implementing something like that, because I feel like responsible growth is an opinion, and it's a wide range of opinion on what is responsible.
I agree with you wholeheartedly that the term, as John has pointed out, the term affordable housing.
Agreed.
That's a buzzword that gets used without meaningful definition. The term responsible growth, I think, means something different to different people. lost my train of thought.
Calculated maximum of.
Oh, yes, so, there was a proposal, and I actually kinda like it, of limiting the number of building permits. My opinion of that is that limiting the number of building permits allows for city staff to adequately, employ, staff necessary to maintain that level of service. Having an.
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
I think you're actually voicing an opinion, and I don't think you're allowed to, and I don't wanna mess this up for the future, so can I just suggest that this be an agenda item that is discussed very seriously for our city?
Sure.
I mean, we can discuss moratoriums.
I just don't want it to be off the table in the future.
I appreciate that. Loran, could you add that to the list, please?
At the top.
Number one.
And I think specifically the notes that I would like to see is discussion item regarding limiting or regulating the rate of growth, number of building permits and such.
Stacy O'Connell. Oh, thank you. Haven't even said anything. Rathdrum. So I have a question for, I of course don't live in the city, my mom does in Brookshire. The sewer costs is a flat rate for everybody. My mom's 85 years old, she lives by herself. Her water bill is about maybe $25 a month. Her sewer bill is nearly $90. Her neighbors across the street have 3 adults, 3 kids. I can imagine their water bills are much more than hers, and they pay the same amount for sewer. It seems very unfair. It should be based on the water usage. I know you have to send it to Post Falls.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be my mom's problem, though. She
Right.
shouldn't be paying $90 for,
We have a requirement that our sewer fee be the same as what it is for Post Falls residents. So what?
So they have a flat fee as well then?
Mr. Mayor, it's a little different than that. Our fee for Post Falls is the same as a commercial rate for those in Post Falls. We have a cost to provide the service to be hooked up, and that's that. And it's a flat rate for every residential property. Commercials pay a higher rate than residential does, because in commercial, they may use a lot more and they may flush a lot more because they've got more people going to the bathroom in their business. They may have a kitchen where they're preparing food, so they have all of those different things. So in a business, they pay per 1,000 gallons, and they pay that, and some of those are very, very expensive. As far as residents goes, we don't have a meter system. We have for sewer, and we create a fee based off of just residential use, and that includes what the city of Post Falls does to treat their system, because we have to pay that rate for residential use. And then we also have our fee that we transport all of that sewage to Post Falls. And so those are the costs, and what we've done in our rate study is to figure out what is a fair rate for residential and what's a fair rate for commercial to do that process. Without meters on those sewers, which we've tried in certain areas and failed, but there isn't a way to really know how much that is. A residential property, because it is a flat rate, means that in the summertime when they're using water for irrigation, that doesn't count against them for sewer either. So there's those things. So we've tried to keep those rates low, but we have to pay for the cost of providing the service.
Or can't you base it on what they use for water? The amount of water you use, that's gonna be the sewer pretty much. I mean, if they're running their sprinklers, that's costing them money to do it. Flushing the toilets, costing them money to do it.
Yeah,
But it's just a flat fee for someone that has a $25 bill and it's $90. That's insane. It should be split up. Are we paying a flat fee to Post Falls and not based on how much we're sending them?
No, we get paid for, we get billed based off of the gallons that were sent to Post Falls.
Right, so that should be divvied up between everybody based on their water usage or something, instead of a flat fee to people that are single family or smaller. I mean, there's homes that have more than
Using
5
the
people.
water rate, I know, is problematic because in the summer months that you have the irrigation, that you're watering your lawn, and that none of that water is going into the sewer system, and so that would cause your sewer and water bill to increase during the summer months, and then decrease during the winter months. So I'm not sure that that's the right.
Well, that'd help him out, cause he's want people to water his grass, so he'll stop watering, cause the sewer price will go up. I don't know, there needs to be some way, because it's just really unfair for the pricing between, just a single person paying $90 for sewer.
And generally, I don't think that we know the occupancy of any one residence versus another. I mean, you might know, how many people generally live in a house next to you or something that, like, I mean, I know my neighbor, there's one guy that lives on one side of me, and he's alone, there's nobody else there, and on the other side, he's got him and her and the 2 kids, I think, 4. Is there 6 there?
But the water
I didn't realize
cost should reflect the number of people. More people, more water usage.
Yeah, it would cause the sewer rate to increase with the water consumption in the summer months when we're not sending as much sewage proportionally to Post Falls. So I mean, I don't know that those reflect one another as fairly. As you mentioned, I know that we have utilized sewer meters. They get clogged. They're nasty. They don't function very well. They're not very accurate. So it's something that we haven't utilized to monitor sewage rates or sewage usage. Fees that we charge are, we're required to have a study that reflects what the cost of the service is, and so we've gone through a very extensive process to do that, to ensure that our calculations are accurately set or appropriately set, that are defensible in court. I know that there's been, when fees aren't calculated correctly, even when they're favorable to the user, that can be challenged and can be the basis of even if the math is favorable to the consumer, that can be the basis for fees to be ruled unlawful. So we've gone through quite a bit to make that happen and to set the fees of what they currently are.
Are other Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, Hayden, do they do the same thing, flat fees?
I don't know what they're.
Post Falls
I guess Falls doesn't.
For residential, they do. The commercial's the same as ours. We have to have like systems, and like ordinances and like requirements, because we share the same sewer
treatment system.
And so a lot of those are the same. I don't know, Coeur d'Alene's and Hayden's is done, their sewer right now is through a sewer district. And Hayden processes the bills for them and then works with them in doing that. And I also know that they're working on taking over that sewer district, because the sewer district doesn't want to do it anymore, so they're working with Hayden to change that over to Hayden. But those are a lot of long negotiations and a long process, and I don't know if that will ever.
So how does that work? So, sometimes you may not send as much over there, and other times you'll send more, and you're paying based on what you send over, right? But yet you're charging the people a certain price. Sometimes you're making out, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're making money, sometimes you're losing money.
The fee study, what it looks at is what's the total cost of the system over time. And then it also factors in other things, not just the operational expense, but the infrastructure expense. So making sure that in the event that you have an infrastructure failure, those are incredibly expensive to repair. That we're not talking about thousands of dollars, we're talking about like millions of dollars to put in new sewer lines and things like that. Those are very, very large ticket items. So making sure that we have a fund balance that's capable of withstanding that the requirements, and the fee study evaluates the value of the system, the cost of operating, the cost of improvements and things that are required of the system over time, and making sure that it's appropriately balanced and the fee is supported by a mathematical equation that was, wasn't something that is just picked out of thin air, that it's something
No,
that's
I know,
supported
it's
by.
just, it's unfair to someone that has, a solo person to be paying such a large amount.
Here, here.
Yeah.
So it's just, especially an elderly person who's on a budget, has to pay $90 a month for sewer. It's just, seems very unfair. So thank God I have a septic tank, that's all I can say. My other question is, I had talked about, I don't know, a few weeks ago or something, a city council meeting, about, there's a city code, and I don't know what it is, maybe you can tell me, where there's been times when we can't speak, some Quasimodo, some weird thing, I don't know what it is. Well, Quasimodo. So, I think that should be changed. I think that we should be able to speak. I don't know why there is such a code, and what code is it?
It's state law.
State prevents that?
Correct. Idaho state law requires quasi-judicial matters, and it's not that you can't speak, it's that there's a prescribed time in which to do so. Public hearing is the opportunity.
Well, we had it, we know the case where it happened, and then it came to the point where we could not speak the second time, and final round of, going over it, which I thought was unfair that we couldn't speak then, it made no sense.
Yeah, it's because we're not operating at that time as a council, we're operating as a court. And so state law requires a public hearing, and that during a public hearing that there's an opportunity to speak. The quasi-judicial issues and making sure that I'm expressing that, talking in general terms, not just about that one specific instance. There are legal proceedings in which are required, and it's a process to get to a judicial review, to go to a bigger court, to overrule or to determine whether or not the lower court, us, made the appropriate action or decision. And so there's prescribed times that are allowed and that are not. A land use item is a quasi-judicial issue, so it's something where we're not acting in a legislative capacity, that they're acting as a judicial
Well, what
process.
changed it to be judicial, I guess?
So it's not a change, it's a land use issue. Every
But
land
when we
use.
started in the beginning, we were able to speak, and then something changed.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may jump in, what changed is they asked for a reconsideration in that particular case. That's still part of the due process that is established by state law. And so there is no public hearing for that. It's an opportunity for them to present their case to the council as still in a judicial format.
But we already had a public hearing about it, so the public had an opportunity to address, and that's a step required to, the next step after that is
going to the court.
Right. So it's a requirement that we have, that we've already held public hearings on the matter. So we've given the public an opportunity to hear. The developer, can I talk about that?
I don't know what you're about to say, so I'm not sure what you're about.
It's okay, I
Are you
get
about
it.
to talk about requests for reconsideration?
She said she gets it.
I get it, I understand now, so.
But I mean, the specifics of that case, is that still taboo,
There's-
isn't it?
I mean, there's more future land use
Yeah, I can't talk
procedures
about that.
coming up on that piece of property, so I would probably steer clear of
It's
talking
okay,
about a
I'm good.
specific piece of property.
You can't talk about it, I can't even talk about it.
I know, see that? It's rude.
General questions about requests for reconsideration, of course, we can answer those.
Okay, all right. I just had one other question, I know it's the third one, but he was talking about, you're talking about a pipe.
To be fair to him, how about if we stop you there and then
Okay.
allow you to come back up?
Well, ask him about the pipe, who's paying for it, so I want to know. This expensive
The city
pipe.
is on the pipe.
Should be the builders.
There's no bill.
Anyone else?
Laura Fuller. Yes, I live in Rathdrum. I had a question about, can changes be made to the future land use map? And can the city council be the one that initiates recommending those changes? And if so, how would that process work?
I believe yes,
Yes.
and please answer.
Resolution. Well, we go through the hearing process of changing of the comprehensive plan, but then they eventually adopt it through a resolution.
Let's back up there. I'm working on new comprehensive plan. We will have workshops, we will have public hearings, we will have public input. I will make changes, I will present it to council, they will tell me what they don't like about it. I will make those changes. They adopt the thing. So yes, and it's coming.
But if they already adopt one and they still wanna make changes to the future land use map, which I think might be your question, additional changes, they can make changes to the comprehensive plan whenever they want. We just go through the process again, and then we adopt it again via resolution, that's it.
Okay.
And that process is public hearing?
Yes, same public hearing, same as a code process, same as a public hearing, and then we adopt, it's a legislative process.
Or you get to talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so resolution is a public hearing process.
So the resolution itself isn't the public hearing, but the changing a comprehensive plan is a public hearing process because a comprehensive plan is a document created through the Land Use Planning Act. And so since it's a legislative land use issue, it goes through the public hearing process, just as change to Title 15 or Title 12, which are both land use codes. When we do changes to those, we hold public hearings. If we did changes to other codes, we don't have to do public hearings for those because they're not under the LUPA, under the Land Use Planning Act.
Okay, and is the future land use map part of the comprehensive plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can the public make recommendations for that?
Yeah, we have a process for the public to, well, we have a process for people to apply to change the future land use map themselves, to ask for a change, but also.
There's a cost incurred with that,
There is
though.
a cost, but I mean, other changes.
So like if you wanted to say that, I think that this future land use map area shouldn't be this, that you could present, so you could apply for that change, and then you would have to pay for the cost of it. And we have developers occasionally that will do that. They'll say, hey, I want to do something with this property, so well, it doesn't conform with the future land use map. So then they can pay to request that change. A future land use map is a legislative issue, right? So you can talk to your counselors about. Yep. So you can contact your counselors, write to counselors. Their email addresses are online. That you can present something to them and ask them to consider a change, and if it's something that you're compelling and that they would like to pursue, that it's an issue that they could raise.
And I would have to pay a fee for that?
No, if you contact your counselor, right?
Okay.
No, yeah.
Only if you apply, only if you apply.
Yeah.
There's an option to apply.
If one of these guys aren't the ones that are saying, I'd like to make this change, and it can be on behalf of, it can be that, somebody came to me with a brilliant idea and I was like, this is genius, why don't we do this? And so then they say, let's go do that. They can make that recommendation and then it goes through the process and everything that initiates the process. Or you can say that I have this idea and they can say that's done. And then you can say, I'm gonna shove it down your throat anyway, and you're gonna pay the fee, and then you can come and ask them, and then they can still tell you that it's a dumb idea and that they don't wanna do it.
Okay, and has it ever happened in the past that the city council has made recommendations for changes to the future land use map? Has that ever occurred?
I'd say yeah.
It has in the.
Self-initiated ones are a little less often than developer applied.
I've made a recommendation, but we didn't go anywhere.
When we do a comprehensive plan.
Council member.
That is a large part of public input and council and mayor's input. And so in a way, every 5 years when we do review our comprehensive plan, that's a lot of the opportunities for the public to make inputs and the council to make inputs. And I would say that would be a self-starting plan that the council does. The requirement by law says that we look at it at city code every 5 years. But looking at it and doing something about it can be two different things. So the city council could say, hey, we still think we're good and we're not gonna spend the time to do it, or they can say, hey, we want to do this. And so that's kind of initiated by mayor and council.
I think there's another issue too. That I had made a recommendation. I believe I was still city council about I wanted to change to a future land use map regarding a particular area, and that there was concern that about initiating that process and what the landowner's rights are in that regard. Can you talk about that?
That was before Emily, and I think
sure?
if I'm remembering correctly, I don't know, I'm having a foggy.
Yeah.
memory.
Emily, when did you get here?
February of 2022, but I wasn't city attorney until August of 22.
Yeah, I think it was before that.
So basically, council member,
There shouldn't have been an issue with, in my, just a cursory general view, there shouldn't be an issue with changing the future land use map as far as land rights are concerned, because you're not changing their actual zoning. You're
Right.
changing a future land use map, which is a guiding document only, not, if you change their zoning, obviously that's a property rights issue, but you're changing the future land use, so as a general.
Hey, Loran, would you add another topic to the
Right.
list of
Just like what we're doing.
future
Yeah.
land use map
We're changing the
change?
future land use map now.
I'm working on it. I have exactly one open house so far. Like, give me a month. I mean, it's.
I didn't say we're adding it to the next agenda, I just said add it to the list. There's a specific change that I recommended previously, and I would like.
In general, I've
Yeah.
got a draft ready to present for
Sure.
public input.
Okay.
Just send me an email with what you think needs to be changed on.
Okay, I guess I'm just asking, like, could this successfully be done?
Oh, yeah.
Has it been successfully?
Well, yeah, every time somebody wants to build something that isn't on the map, they have to do a comprehensive or a future land use map change in order to do the zone change, because the zone that they want isn't supported by the future land use map.
We do it all the time. I mean, and it's something that I'm actually frustrated with at times, because we say that on the council agenda, there's a future land use map change, and then right after that, there's the zone change. And the zone change says that it's generally conforming to the future land use map. Well, it wouldn't have been if we didn't just approve it. And so to me, it's like putting the cart before the horse, that you're, like, you say that it's conforming with the future land use map, but it wasn't 2 seconds ago.
Right.
And we have had at times where the council has said, no, we're not going to amend the future land use map.
And then it kills.
And basically,
Deny the rezone.
totally kills the
Yeah.
rezone request.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are there gonna be more open houses?
Oh, yeah, I'm planning 5 of them, so that was number one. I got.
When you say open house, what are you referring to?
For the future.
Absolutely.
For the comprehensive plan, future land use map.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do, he's gonna do surveys.
Bring more red dots.
There will be online surveys coming out
More
with
stickers.
specific questions. There's more coming. I'm not done.
Any others before I go back to Rick?
I want.
What?
Sorry, Rick. I live in Brookshire too, I know who Rick is.
We're sorry.
Gotta love me.
I didn't say that.
How's your water pressure?
Awful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Rick was taking a
okay, so
shower.
that's one of the things, you know, they were saying like, you know, have your sprinklers going off, you know, in the middle of the night so you have better water pressure. I had mine running at 3 a.m. and it was like, bing, not happening. So, I don't know what to tell you, but that's my experience. So yeah, water pressure is still an issue for our Brookshire area, he's not wrong. My other thought was, have we thought about, because I've come up and talked about safety, getting out in case of an emergency. Have we thought about, and I don't know if infrastructure has been involved in this, but can we make more bridges over, like say down Hutter? Obviously that one might be hard because there's that farmer right there. But going down Meyer, another bridge, just like we have like on 41. That way there's more exit points in case something does happen, in case that train stops, we'll be able to get up and over it.
We'd have to increase your property taxes. So much.
I know.
And we're limited by law about how much we can increase your property taxes, so we don't have the funds to be able to accommodate that.
Future use of developers coming in.
So yeah, and one of the things that you're talking about as well, especially outside of city limits, is you know, things Kevin mentioned KCAT earlier, KMPO, right, that helps direct the funding for projects like that, especially state and federal funding. You know, there are plans in the works regionally. You know, the Rathdrum Prairie Transportation Study, which is just about wrapping up. They're down to 4, I'm gonna say 4 final ideas for basically a new Highway 95, for lack of a better description. 2 of those are a new Hutter. One of them is at grade, where it's basically level with where it is now, stoplights, things like that. The other one is a raised grade, where it's actually raised up a little bit with interchanges to make it faster for people to get north.
Yeah.
And then say like an interchange at like Lancaster, right? So it'd make it a lot faster if you were going, say, to Coeur d'Alene, you wouldn't have to go over to 95.
Right.
You could go the Hutter bypass to 90 to Coeur d'Alene, right?
Okay.
So there are plans like that that are in the pipeline in the future. I'm actually coming up with a list of projects that are gonna directly impact Rathdrum, and I'm hoping at the December meeting to actually give that presentation, just to kind of keep everybody in the loop on projects that are coming in the next 10 years or so that will directly impact the city.
Okay. And thank you for tonight. Very informative. Thank you all.
Rick,
You're up.
I'm letting everybody else.
well, I think you need to pepper
Okay.
yourself in there every once in a while, because it sounds like you might have a few visits to the podium.
Getting back to a couple things. The school lot in Brookshire. I know I came and filled out a nasty form. Is there any way we can change the nasty form to be just an informative form?
What changes would need to be made to the form to make it change from a nasty
You
to
don't
an
have to
informed?
put your name on it, because then they know, because all they have to do is ask, I wanna see a copy of the notice.
Is there a legal requirement to identify the complainant?
We have, there is no legal requirement, but in the past, with both our downstairs code enforcement and the parking code enforcement at the police, council has required, no anonymous code enforcement complaints be made, because they don't want the neighbors to go after each other and just do anonymous complaints after each other, and it to become kind of a nitpicky situation. They want true complaints that code enforcement can deal with. Since we do have limited code enforcement people, can deal with those issues. So that's why both the parking issues and the code enforcement downstairs have always required names on the forms. We don't accept anonymous code enforcement. But if council gave us that direction that we could start accepting anonymous code enforcement, then of course staff would do that.
And I want to throw out, Rick, if I may interrupt, one of the big reasons is because prior councils that made that decision didn't want neighbors to use the city as a sledgehammer on their neighbors. And it would be first and foremost, the most appropriate way is to talk to your neighbors first. And
Totally
then-
understand that, but this is not a neighbor issue. The school lot is not a neighbor issue.
Did you talk to the school board?
You know how many bad emails I got because I turned them in and they had to come out and cut the grass? That's something that if we had somebody that drove around and did enforcement, 10 inches, that would have rectified that problem. But I guess if I have to, I have to. I don't want to be the bad guy, but that's my neighborhood. I'm in charge of the commons, so.
Well, at the time that was changed, if I believe, it was being weaponized, that's why it was changed.
Just a second, Ken, I can't hear you. I'm gonna turn off the air conditioning.
Are you talking about the property of the proposed school?
Yeah.
Okay, and maintaining that property?
Yes, because it's a total eyesore.
Okay,
Total.
I wasn't sure what you
eyesore.
meant. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
the
clarify.
grass was taller than me. When I finally came in and said something to James, and James says, gotta come fill this out, put your little name there. It's like, why? Can't you just call the school board and tell them to go out there and cut it? No, it's gotta be a sheet with our name on it. Another thing about people planting big trees in the swells, and that's just gonna create big problems for the city.
There's a city code that limits the tree type, the tree species that are allowed. if I'm
Again,
not mistaken, right?
Mayor, you want me to fill out this little form downstairs and put
Yeah.
my name on there so they know who turned them in?
Number one, people aren't allowed to plant trees in the swale unless they come to
If
city
we
for
had-
permitting. But it is our standard policy to require developers to plant street trees in the swale. So,
Brookshire is well done.
Let me throw in.
Brookshire is well done.
In this particular area, this was post because I've talked to Rick about
Okay,
this.
sorry.
This is post-development, this was a homeowner that decided to plant a tree in the swell. That
More than
didn't-
one.
Yeah, that didn't come and get a permit.
Okay, see, everything that I said they're supposed to do, they
But
did.
then again, James, you want me to go downstairs and fill out this little piece of paper and put my name on it?
Because you're turning me and my staff into a weapon, and we don't wanna do that for you. If you have a problem with your neighbor, ask
It's
them.
gonna be the city's problem when that tree grows and it takes out a line, it takes out the curbs, it takes out the street. And
That's
we've
a-
already talked to
that's
Leon
actually
about
the
this.
property
If we
owners.
had somebody just drive once a month and look,
I would love to. Can I have a full-time staff with another?
that's not
vehicle, please?
full-time. If you wanna put me on the books as a volunteer to drive around, as long as I don't have to fill out a form, I'll do it. All you gotta do is direct me.
Volunteer code enforcement.
Volunteer forcing,
But then they're gonna know who did it.
doesn't matter then, because I go around the whole city.
So
when,
let me-
when that was implemented, it was being weaponized. That's why the city council did what they did, because the neighbors were bickering back and forth and complaining about one another.
I'm bringing you something that's gonna hurt the infrastructure of a community.
That they're-
Lines, maybe sewer lines, streets, sidewalks, curbs, because these are not little trees. These are gonna grow out to be huge trees in a swell that is maybe 5 feet wide. And you think you had problems down here in the city? You're gonna have a lot more problems in a community.
Well, I would think if they didn't get a permit for it and that happens, it's gonna be on the homeowner. Am I
Just a
not right?
little bit of code enforcement.
Didn't you say you were the HOA?
Yep, but I have no jurisdiction in the swells because whose property is that? Yours. We just maintain them. That's why I'm bringing it up to the city. Also, last thing, when it comes to council member seat, do you have to reside in a certain area for that seat?
No. In the city of Rathdrum, in the city limits, but there's no zones for city code.
I'm sorry, I missed a question.
We all represent all of you.
Asking
Okay.
if there's zoning district requirements for city council seats.
No, there
In
is
some
not in
cities there are,
Rathdrum. In some
but not in
cities there are, and there are several different ways to elect council members depending upon your city. Example, Hauser has a horse race system.
Okay.
Which means that everybody runs.
That sounds fun.
Well, like we just had the one seat up because one was unopposed and one had
So in
two.
Hauser, all people would have ran for the, basically the same.
For city
eight
council.
council seat. And
The top
people
two.
with the top 2 votes would get the 2 seats. Okay, that's Hauser style, okay, which is allowed by state law.
Right.
In Rathdrum style, we select seats, so seat 1, 2, 3, even 4, and then you pick which seat you want to run for, okay?
Okay, so-
So in the last election, we had
Nobody ran against
Ken
Mob Boss.
and John.
Which
So we
is,
we had
Ken
those-
was seat 4.
Yep, and John was seat 2.
Three.
Okay? Three, sorry.
Larry's seat 3.
I let Loran take care of that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Right,
So-
Loran?
Around.
So anyway, what they do then is when somebody comes in to put in for election, they get to choose which seat they wanna run for.
When do we have to put in for that election?
That election,
August.
those elections, there is 2 weeks in August that state law sets as the time that you have to do it, okay? And then your name gets put on the ballot. 1 week later, just for educational purposes, if you didn't put your name on the ballot, but you still want to be considered, then you can do write-in, but you have to declare as a write-in within 1 week of the closing of the name on the ballot timeframe.
Okay, can we campaign before that, 2
You
weeks?
can campaign as much as you want, but you have to fill the paperwork in within that 2-week timeframe.
I think you can talk to people about it, but I don't think you can place campaign signs
Not the
or anything
signs,
like
but
that
you
till
can-
after.
I'm just talking
till
door-to-door
after.
knocking.
Yeah.
I think that's legal, I'm just saying there's campaign laws that are
And
registered by
funding- and funding
they're
is-
called the Sunshine Law. It's in the state of Idaho, and
And
it's
you
Yeah,
real
they
clear.
can
have
go
to
up
file if
certain
you're not
Right,
more
right,
than,
right.
I think it's $500. You have to file.
But you can
your-
file your sunshine report.
Whenever you want.
Yeah, you can file that before the filing
As soon
declaration.
I had to call them
Well-
and they had to open it special for me. They've changed it so it will not open the reporting until you hit $500. You have to call them and actually have them open it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll talk to you more about that, John, because I don't know.
And
anything
it's
about
real
that
clear on the
section.
website.
Okay.
Sunshine law, that's all you gotta look at.
Yeah.
Even
And
I
so-
figured
So
it
that's just a notice.
out.
2 years.
No, a year now.
Two.
Only one more year.
2 years.
No,
2 years.
2 years.
We, city elections only happen once every 2
Every
years.
2
2 years, I guess. Then.
We're the next two victims right here.
Yeah, you're right.
Good.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Can I say something or no?
You were supposed to go before me.
I heard that.
My name is Serena Hill, and I live on Majestic here in Rathdrum. I just wanted to know, and all four of you obviously live in Rathdrum, how many of you actually do feel these people's pain with the water pressure? And you have tried to, so, I mean, I personally, I don't know how to do it, but my husband put in a smart system in our watering system, so it could do it during time with better pressure, or to try to help do it different times to help. But out of all four of you, because I know you already deal with it, but out of the four councilmen, how many do you guys feel the pain of that? How many do you guys see the water pressure issues in your homes? Is it all of you?
Doesn't affect my house.
Mine neither. Mine's fine.
I don't have any.
Do they have, I hear a lot about Brookshire. We're close, we're in Majestic, so we're really close. We're not in the new part of Majestic, we're the old part of Majestic. But, so is there just certain parts of the city that are feeling this, or is it generally a huge portion of the city that has issues with
I
water
think
pressure?
Brookshire is where we hear the most complaints about
Leon
water
can
pressure.
explain it a lot.
I'll let the guys down there.
Pass the buck.
Before you do that, can I ask a question that might help with that? There's a difference between pressure and volume, okay? You can put a lot of volume through a pipe, but as you shrink that pipe down, it builds up pressure. Am I correct? Okay, so I'm just throwing that out there. Do we have a volume issue or just a pressure issue or what?
Couple of things. And maybe I'll answer it in how I provide my answer. Yes, the restrictions are typically, if you were to look at the city of Rathdrum and look at the elevation of your property and where it's at, that should dictate kind of what the challenges are and the reason why there are pressure problems. Your area in Majestic, in that section of Brookshire, is the highest part of the city of Rathdrum that we serve water to. For instance, if you were in the downtown area, if you were in the Bowl, the previous mayor lived on Wright Street, and he would give us a lot of grief about the fact that we are blowing out his system because we are over pressurizing the system. So certain people have far too much pressure, and then there are certain areas that don't have enough pressure per them. I would say that the common answer that I would provide, and I've provided to Rick over the time, and you can see he tends to disagree and he voices his pleasure, I get it. We are within the legal requirements that we need to satisfy for providing pressure to residents. But we did do a spot study for Brookshire to kind of look at what the challenges were. And it was a spike in the reverse direction at the same time every single day of when the pressure would drop from 60 or even if it was 65, that it would go right down to that 40, and in some cases it would get down to the 35 range in pounds. That's a lot of pressure that's being lost. And it's simply, and Larry, to answer you, it's a little bit of both in that case. You know, the demand for the water is there. The fact that, you know, we're not able to, you know, satisfy the requirements for what they're seeking for pressure. So the reason why we're getting pressure complaints is, and I don't think I'm gonna be presumptive in saying this, that there are times when Rick will probably take a shower and it'll be glorious. And he wants that every single time. And the problem is we do have a pressure differential that operates at certain times of the day within that system that prohibits him from having that consistent water pressure all day long. And that's the challenges we're looking at trying to address. I understand he's dissatisfied, and I get it. The answer to the question about how does it get fixed, as the mayor indicated, it's not a short-term fix. You know, we're going through a water master plan update, which is, for us, we're going to receive a simulation or a computerized model of how our water system performs, where some of the deficits or deficiencies may be at, and some of the recommendations on how to go about making those corrections or improvements. And all those things will cost money. So I think we're a little premature in doing some of these things. I think that we're trying to grasp some of the low-hanging fruit that we know will help. For instance, Rick had indicated that we're looking at extending a water main to complete a gap on Lancaster Road between basically where the new Jiffy Stop's going in and where NIC is. That will help. Will it solve the situation of not having Rick show up to a council meeting complaint? We don't know yet. And Rick, don't take that the wrong way.
No, absolutely not.
It's certainly not intended to be disparaging. But we'll know more about what solutions are, because the beauty of having a computer simulated hydraulic model of our water system, the performance is we can plug in certain improvements and then hit the go button and see how our system performs. And that will be a wonderful tool to kind of illustrate, you know, how we can make some of these improvements. He and I think we know how to solve some of the problems now. We're just waiting for the professional, basically the consultants that we're paying a ton of money to get the work done, so that we could, you know, solidify what we think we already know may be solutions. And as is the case, they will always provide other solutions that we may not be considering.
Kevin, if I could for a sec, you mentioned legal PSI requirements. What are those? What are the range that we're required to operate within?
It's your turn, Chris.
We're required by IDAPA 58, we have to have 40 to 80 in most of our system. And if you go under 30, you have to provide public notification, and we have to notify DEQ and then send out notifications on that.
So then, where is that pressure measured at?
It's measured at the property line, so it's not actually measured at your house.
How do you take that measurement then? How do you establish that measurement?
You can establish that measurement based on the flow of all the appurtenances in the house, and then take your pressure drop back. So, like, for example, if you have 40 PSI at the water meter, and you're operating that water meter at it's 35 gallons a minute, you're going to drop 7.3 pounds of pressure. Just like every 90 in your PEX in your house drops your pressure. Your low flow shower heads, the scale that's in your system from your on-demand hot water heater, those are all factors that we don't take into account for that measurement.
But how, if you're going out to someone's home, or where is it that you're tapping to get these water measurements?
At the meter.
Well, no, we generally actually, if somebody requests a requests a pressure reading, we go to their property and do it on their spigot that's accessible to us.
If they give us permission.
So that is beyond their property line then, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then, and we're required to have above, if below 30, like if you went out to someone's home and you measured below 30, that then there's legal requirements that we have to
Yeah, you have to
provide notifications and things.
Yeah, you have to contact DEQ our compliance officer, let them know, and they give you direction. They would wanna know where it is, what the situation is. I mean, we've had to do it for line breaks, for example, in Thayer Farms. We had to notify, Lancaster South, or no, it was Meyer South.
For depressurization.
Yeah, for depressurization.
Water main breaks.
Kevin, you used a nerd term, reverse flow. What does that mean? You were talking about water pressure and that you were seeing.
Reverse pressure?
Oh, pressure reducing valves?
No.
No, you said reverse.
Oh,
When we're
pressure
doing a
differential?
pressure.
Pressure differential.
Nope, not that word either.
It was reverse.
It was reverse. Yep.
Yeah,
There are times of the day where we encounter a reverse.
when you.
Yeah, Lorraine, can you play back the tape?
Oh. So if you're looking at a straight line graph, you will see the cavitation, the spike will go down because you can see at 5 o'clock in the morning that your water pressure went from 65, and it depends on the location, but it'll get to that 35 that pressure measurement, and then it recovers very quickly, within probably, an hour and a half.
So you're talking about like when I'm taking a shower, my wife turns on the washing machine and I yell at her to turn it back off?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you're in a boosted zone though.
Yeah, we actually, in the Corbin Crossing area, we actually isolated that section of the water system and supplemented that through the installation of booster pumps that would read pressure activity within the system to know how or which and how many of those pumps it will turn on to provide a more consistent water pressure.
I've heard you guys also mention about looping a system, or
Yeah.
is that a factor here in Rick's case, or?
Yeah, anytime you get more, or an opportunity to have more points of connection within that water system to connect and tie in, it helps. So in other words, if we have 2 points of tie-in to the Brookshire location, it would be an improvement if we had 5 or 6 points of tie-in. We don't have, and you mentioned looping, we just don't have dead-end water mains where water quality becomes stagnant, or the continuous flow of the water would be allowed to connect to different points, or get served from different points.
Static pressure,
So,
dynamic pressure.
How many complaints have we had
Lorraine?
for low water pressure?
Did you pull this?
When did
So-
they start?
Water pressure complaints?
So I sent out a report to the council, so of people that asked for us to come in and do water pressure tests since 2022, when we started up the BSNA system. I believe there's around, in the 2 different piles of reports that we got, was probably, I know there was 16 in one and I think 22 in another. So that's about 38 complaints over 3 years that came into us and asked that their pressure be tested at their home. We have heard at multiple council meetings concerns about water pressure, but actually that have called and asked for a pressure test at their home, we've had about that 38 since 2022.
So that just seems odd to me that there's way more than 38 homes. You'd think there'd be a lot of people complaining.
I have talked to easily 100 people. I have experienced it. I do experience it at my house. I haven't filled out a complaint.
So, yeah, so it really depends upon, I want to be careful because I don't want to discredit anyone. There's people that have complaints about water pressure, and then there are people that go the next step to actually ask for a test to be done at their home. There may be, both high pressure and low pressure, and there may be 100 complaints, but only 5 people that actually go through the process to get it tested. And I'm trying to do general terms, but we don't go out and test people's pressure just willy-nilly. We ask that if they have a concern, that we go and do it. Now, the other item though is timing. Maybe at 6 o'clock in the morning, you have a low pressure problem. If you were to call the city and say, come test my water pressure, we don't have staff on at 6 o'clock in the morning to go check your water pressure. We go check your water pressure when we do have staff on, when they can go do that, depending upon their job. And we usually respond within a 48-hour window. But when we get there and we test it, it might not be at the same time that you normally experience a low water pressure system. As Kevin's mentioned, as we measure it, we have 65 PSI, and then drops down, and then it comes back up. So if we don't go and test it at 6 o'clock in the morning, we're not gonna see the same issue that you have in your home when you take a shower at 6 o'clock in the morning. Just because we don't have staff on to do that at that particular time.
And so has the water pressure problem been, so has it been a problem since day one? Or
No. When we lived on Majestic, we started getting it when they started building the new Brookshire. Because when we moved here, we were the last street. There was nothing, there was no, I remember there's no houses beyond.
There's nothing south and nothing east.
Yeah, and so we didn't have issues until they started building that. And it's also different per times of year though too. The summer is the worst part. The winter, we don't have as much issues because we're not using the outdoor stuff.
to answer your question, I live on the other side of town, but we have an overpressure problem, not an underpressure problem.
Does that cause issues for your home in different ways then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, mainly hoses.
The only reason that I brought it up, I came up in the first place, because I usually don't, is because I want the city council to know, but I want the residents to know that we feel, my husband and I both feel the pain. We feel it too. We live right close to you. It sucks. Like, he jokes that, I can't wash clothes in the morning. That's true. Like, he gets up at 5, our kids all get up at 6.
Yeah.
That we have to ration it out to help. So we do feel your pain.
I appreciate it.
We feel all of your guys' pain. So I know that my husband's not very touchy-feely, but he feels it, I promise. So, thank you very much.
Something, Serena, I learned a long time ago, when somebody says there's a problem, whether you think there's a problem or not, there's a problem. So, you say there's a problem, I believe you, but I trust these guys over here, the nerds.
They told you there's
the nerds.
a problem, Larry.
Yeah.
They told you
Yeah.
there's a problem.
Well, and like the mayor said, it's not gonna be resolved.
It's not a quick
in
fix,
day.
no,
Right,
but
right. But
on-
we feel your pain, we understand it. It didn't fall on deaf ears. But first you gotta find the problem, find where it's at, and then you can fix it.
Well, we also
And-
don't want to cause issues for the other people's houses though either. I
Right.
didn't realize there was an overpressure problem.
Well, and they explained at the height of
Yeah.
that, so it's kind of a snowball effect, and I trust those guys over there to my left that they will get it resolved. We just have to be patient,
Well, thank you for all the knowledge to you water nerds. I really appreciate it.
I like sharing it, so.
What is the estimated time of the new water line?
So Ken, I just got even Rick mentioned, they're doing survey work. I just got the topo survey delivered to me yesterday, and I've already started messing around with it a little bit as far as the water line design. So I've got a strategy and a game plan. So basically I have a project charter moving forward with as far as, moving that project along. But Ken, to not give you a long-winded answer, I apologize for that. If we could have that ready for construction this winter, we will do it. And if we can get a contractor who wants to keep his, workers busy during the winter, assuming we have conditions which allow them to be able to dig and excavate and all that good stuff, it could happen this winter. There's some things that would prevent that. One, we have to obtain an easement from a property owner. If we can't obtain that easement from that property owner, it could delay the project indefinitely. That is something that's a little bit out of our reach. But the other part is, yeah, we were waiting for the survey. Now that we have it, we're moving forward. We're gonna get it designed, get it permitted, get it ready to rock and roll. We're gonna make contact, tomorrow, probably, with that property owner, and reach out to them, explain to them what we're looking to do, so.
So like start to finish? When it finally
If,
starts?
if we were able to start early spring, that would be on board, that water line would be online by this summer, or summer of '26, period.
And Ken, just as a point, when we budgeted this last year, we budgeted for that project to be done. So there's money, and it's in the water program, so that means it doesn't come out of taxpayer dollars, it comes out of water fees and that we charge. And that's for the part of maintenance and operation of that system. We also charge capitalization fees of builders that also provides funding for that as well. So although the builders aren't and developers aren't going to be directly responsible in this particular case, the funding that we get through those building projects will be used to help build this.
I was just curious how long the project would take. I think that's what he's looking at, to see when, about when it's gonna start and how long it's gonna take. So he has more water.
Right, and I'd like to preface that with the wonderful phrase that we always like to talk about, and that depends. There's a lot of, I know, it's your, I get to use it.
It's every attorney's tagline.
Yeah.
I think, Ken, it all depends on the easement right away. If it can get done, that thing
Yeah.
should be up and running by summertime.
Yep.
But if not, you're talking years to go up and around that property.
Or around it in some other way, but so a couple different ways that we could do it, and we might have to get new surveys, but if that property owner said, no, you're not gonna get an easement across my property, then we could possibly go underneath to Lancaster and get an easement from the other property owner and do that. So is that what we're doing? Okay.
So
Yeah.
what concerns me is I heard at 3 a.m. time, and a trickle at 3 a.m. and there shouldn't be any sprinklers on now at 3 a.m. And there's not that many people up at 3 a.m. that should. So I mean, is there anything else that could be causing that?
Just from looking at our SCADA system, we have a pretty extensive system, and it pressure monitors the wells 24 hours a day, so you can see when they turn on, turn off, you can see the reservoir level. And our peak time is from 1 in the morning to about 7 in the morning. 7 in the morning, we actually can fill the reservoir and still flow test hydrants in the middle of August. It is that period, and a lot of the call-outs, that you get from being in Public Works, you go down. I mean, there's times I've driven past Mike's house and you could, no, I shouldn't get into that. Let's just say a lot of people are watering really heavy. And yeah, it just stays on till
Most of
about
the time
6.
it was me calling you out.
I know. Just as an example.
A couple other things that I kind of jotted down here is I would acknowledge that I think Rick is just the voice of many that I heard others here, and our own property included, that have, if not formally complained, at least echoed the sentiment of water pressure dissatisfaction. Kevin, you mentioned a computer simulation about our water master study. When is that taking place?
It's under development right now. We're expecting all that to be test-driven probably, I'd say, spring of this year, with finalization of that report occurring in August, September.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Have one more quick question. Can changes be made to Rathdrum City Code that allow for changes to when public hearings can be held?
What do you mean by when public hearings can be held?
For instance, on preliminary plat, public hearing is held in front of planning and zoning, but not in front of city council.
So that could be changed to require a public hearing in front of the council as well.
Okay, because she mentioned earlier it was a state rules about when public hearings were.
That they have public hearings, and so we can fulfill that requirement by having that public hearing at P&Z, but there isn't anything in that I can think of that prohibits it from. It could be in front of city council instead of P&Z. It could be at P&Z instead of city council. It could be at both.
Okay,
It's
so
just
the
required
city has
that
a
it has-
wide, like
Right?
range of when they can make modifications on that?
Yeah, there are some parameters, but yes,
Mhm.
basically, we do have a bit of discretion over additional public hearings, from what the state code requires. As long as they're done before the decision is made, you can't have a public hearing on a request for reconsideration, because the state code doesn't allow that at
Yeah.
that portion, but it's before the decision. Then the council does have discretion over having additional public hearings, and they can call for one even if it's not part of our code and they feel like additional information's been coming to light and they wanna have another one on code or something, like they can say, hey, I want another public hearing on this code. And we've done that before, when we've had code sections that have gone to public hearing and we're continuing to work on code. We've had other public hearings after that as well to get more public feedback on things, so we can have additional ones as well for some of that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone else?
I'm gonna follow up on her here, just because I'm kind of confused. So, Stacy O'Connell, Rathdrum, who, Emily, decides? Do we say, ask them to do a hearing, or is it their discretion, or Leon gives us the exact not happening, or?
Typically, it's code. Code sets out when hearings take place. It will also set out when council can request additional hearings.
So they would have to do a new code, is what you're saying?
Yes, we typically have that all listed on code because it has to be a process that is followed very strictly per state code. We have that all listed out within it, but code updates are slightly different because that is a legislative update, so, or legislative issue, so they have a bit more discretion over having public hearings over code changes, because that is legislative. But when it comes to quasi-judicial actions, we have to follow that set process in our code that's set by state code.
Okay.
And so you can't have additional public hearings on land use issues that isn't within our code. You can't just say, we want another one, and another one, and another one, while the applicant's sitting there like, hey, I already did what your code required, why are you making me do another one? So it has to be within our code.
Well, I think, like she was trying to say, it makes sense that, because, well, a lot of people don't go to planning commission, unfortunately. It would be nice to have a hearing here at council, not just at planning commission. It'd be nice to have it here as well. I don't know how that needs to get on the list over there or what, but.
Are there
she's
specific
kinda
things that
alluding
you're
to.
feeling that,
Well, there was one, do you remember what it was that we were talking about? What? The one at
I
the
think it's in
B&C
relation
that-
probably to plats, because annexations and
Yeah.
rezones come to council already, and we do a hearing at council because they involve an ordinance. But something like a plat process, we only do a public hearing in planning and zoning. Actually, many other cities just do approvals of planning and zoning, they don't even take plats to council, because it doesn't involve an ordinance, it doesn't have to go to council at all. As long as it meets code. A lot of other cities just have P&Z approve it after a public hearing. But for us, we do the public hearing at P&Z with their recommendation, and then it comes to council just as an action item. And we don't do a second public hearing, for that, because there's no ordinance involved. It's just as simple, does it meet the criteria, yes or no? Okay, it's approved or not approved. And we do that because we're not trying to have a ton of public hearings all the time. We have the one, we allow for public input. That public input becomes part of the record already for council to see. It becomes part of P&Z's decision, and we have a lot of business to discuss at council, and so having a second public hearing at council for something like a plat that's already so far down the line and has very strict criteria they have to meet, wasn't ever seen as something that was necessary, nor is it required by city code or state code. So that's why we never had that second hearing at council, because we just felt it kind of bogged down the system and it wasn't really necessary. But if council felt that was necessary, then that would be an additional thing that planning would be required to do if it was part of our code.
so because we can't have that discussion here, can we add that to the list of things to have a future discussion on
Yes.
the council?
I would like to add though, that at the, I won't name names, but the last plat we had, the owner actually filled out a form to speak, and she couldn't because weren't allowing any public hearing on it.
Yeah, it was null and void.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's not just those maybe against it, it's also the person that was, you know, directly involved in it, she wanted to speak that night. So, all right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
There was one thing that Stacy said that I wanted to make sure is perfectly clear. City administrator can't nix anything. City administrator only does what the mayor and council asks as the city administrator to do. So as far as like, I can't nix a public hearing request. That's totally up to the city council, not me.
Is there any others? I'll sit in this awkward silence for a moment.
You're gonna let us off? I thought we were gonna be here till midnight.
We're over yet.
So,
yeah, Rick's got something else coming.
I'll give you guys a break till the next town hall.
So with that, I mean, I'd like to do these in reverse order, 7 and then 6. I'd like feedback on how this process went. I think that as we entered into it, it seemed kind of a little bit controlled, a little too restricted. And I think as we worked through the process, that we saw that it's not as restricted as what maybe it initially appears. But I'm curious about the community's feedback about how did this process work? Is it functional for what it is that we want to do? And wanting to repeat this process again in, say, 2 months to come back and have this discussion. Is this the right format to have this, or is this too restrictive? Is there something else that the community would like to see? Please.
Time limits maybe on each question, so we don't go on to something for 15 minutes and potty break.
I agree.
So you're saying put time limits on the questions?
Yeah, just put it there.
Instead of having.
Unwritten.
Yeah, well,
Just written.
yeah.
Just.
You know.
Any
Well,
other?
that just made that go 2 questions and then wait in line, get 2 questions, wait in line,
Any other feedback?
right?
I thought it
Okay,
was
perfect.
better than I had anticipated. When I read this, I was like, are you kidding me?
I agree. I felt
I thought, geez,
little too
I almost
restrictive.
didn't come, because I
Right.
thought, what a waste.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it wasn't as painful as what we kind of initially made it out to be.
Honestly, you guys did comply with these rules, even though you felt they were restrictive. Everything that we answered was all factual information or stuff the city is doing or the city's planning to do. That's all that what these
Yeah.
rules were meant to do, is to create a respectful environment and to make sure there's transparency, that we were answering things with the factual information that we can provide you. It wasn't meant to try to stifle questions or things like that. It was just to ensure that we were being transparent to all the other citizens that weren't able to be here tonight.
Not just transparent, but compliant with open meeting laws.
Which is the whole point of the open meeting
Right.
law, is for transparency's sake,
Yeah.
for those that can't attend meetings or don't know what might be discussed at meetings. So
Mhm.
that's the whole point. You guys did comply with this. You guys did a very good job, and I appreciate the efforts.
Well, that's the difference between a council meeting and a town hall.
Is
Council meeting, we can't ask questions, we can only state
Right.
fact. At town hall, we actually get to address you guys on our concerns and
Yeah.
get feedback.
And initially going into this, that I was really uncomfortable with and displeased with the process. That I really felt that this was too restrictive, and this wasn't what I felt the community was asking for. And so as we started tiptoeing into this and got kind of an icebreaker there that Mary started us off with, that it kind of helped us to start to realize what kind of room we had to work with.
Emily did a great job.
Yep, absolutely.
Put you in your place.
So good to hear. Is this format acceptable then for future town hall meetings? Is that kind of?
Absolutely.
Would it help with the time restrictions if maybe we came with subjects, like if we were able to submit subjects that we wanted to talk on, maybe not have the full question, but it might help with time constraint, that way, you know.
I was just about to throw that in, is what I expected tonight was.
Not necessarily an agenda, but it's just
Right,
like subjects.
right. But, in a city council meeting, we know what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
We know it's in our agenda, it's in our packet, and it's all right there in black and white, and we know what we're gonna discuss. I had no idea what you guys were going to, don't take it personally, throw at us. Had no clue what you guys wanted to talk about. And I thought it went really well, and I liked it, but I like your idea, Bridget, of possibly, giving us ahead of time, like we wanna talk about water pressure or, trees in the grassy swales.
That would be restrictive though.
Yeah.
That would be restrictive.
Would it?
The whole purpose of this was to be able to come and say whatever, or ask whatever you'd like. If you would have, that would be just like an agenda.
That's what I was wondering, that was my question.
I wasn't gonna talk about sewer, but when I was sitting here hearing people talk about water, I thought, that's right, that sewer issue. And so
Right.
I didn't think about it ahead of time.
Well, I think at the beginning of this, it did feel restricted, because every question was being referred to, is it okay? Is it okay? Well, that's kinda not what we wanted to do here. So at first, I think I was a little upset. That was kinda frustrating to see that happen. But, I think it needs to be open as well, not restrictive, because then people don't wanna talk. People don't wanna make comments, which maybe they would've.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I hope that you guys can understand the issue that we're dancing around with. There's the open meeting requirements and
We do now.
trying to fit within that. And it was a struggle, and it's like, so man, this is frustrating that we've got to find a way that we can do this.
Well, I guess I just thought it would've been more open, like you said. It
Yeah,
wouldn't have been
and I'm hopeful that
so
once people
restrictive.
see this and perhaps see it online and hear about it, that it's something that people realize that, okay, yes, that these are the guides that we have to work within, the boundaries that we have to operate within, but it wasn't as restrictive as what maybe it initially appeared.
Right.
That we very much want to have this conversation. And so it's been a real challenge to figure out how to
Well, I think this has been good. I don't
create
think
that
that I've
space.
ever lived in a city where the camaraderie with a city council has ever been there.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in Washington. There was not. So, there was not the kind of atmosphere that we do have here.
This
So
place isn't very big, and we
this-
live here too.
this has been really encouraging to see us be able to come to you guys.
Is there anyone then that felt that they didn't have an opportunity to express themselves because of the parameters that are in place? Tough crowd.
You better cut me out of the video.
Well, I think that, when we went, like last Wednesday, there were a lot of us were there on Wednesday. And a lot of the concerns you could see were a lot of red dots on land use issues, and things like that. And I think that those issues are the ones that we are kind of shy, I think, about discussing, is the land uses. We've been talking about water and the water situations. I live on Harmony Street in Prairie Sky. We deal with the same thing. Rick, you're not the only one. We deal with it too. So I guess my concern is not, talking about land use issues, is the building.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
this keeps continuing with this building. Where are we gonna be if, say, we can't purchase that easement, or we can't do what with that, where does this end up?
So, I wanted to distinguish between land use issues and what you had talked about with the red
Okay,
dots and the
well,
comprehensive
probably
plan.
my fault.
The comprehensive plan and those red dots, that's legislative, those are things that we can discuss. That it's the specific land use that I'm talking about this piece of property, this particular development, those are the things that are taboo, and that we get the yellow or green card or whatever color that was.
Orange.
Is that orange?
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway.
Hunter's orange.
Say what?
Hunter's orange.
Oh, I can't see that.
I know that. But I wanna throw a shout out here.
I don't shoot at colors, I shoot at identified targets. Anyway, so, yeah, it's great to hear that this was a format that, although it felt uncomfortable initially, that it was something that we were able to work through. And that, because I hope to repeat it. So, with that, I'd like to talk about us having a repeat, another one in 2 to 3 months, to start looking at calendar and seeing about getting another opportunity. So now we transition to item 6, the list and prioritization. I only heard a handful of things that maybe made the list. I think that there was a lot of things that we were able to have a discussion and simply have a conversation about things. There's only a handful of things that I was keeping track of that sounded like they may have made the list. Can we go over what you have?
I only have responsible growth, limiting the number of permits, and then future land use map,
Mm-hmm.
and then public hearings.
Council, do you guys have any other items that would like further discussion on?
I have a question for Lena. So you said bringing new businesses into town, you can't give them tax breaks, but can we give them breaks on water and sewer hookup fees?
No. That would, I do not believe so, because we have to charge everybody fairly and equally by state law. But we could put that on an agenda and give staff enough time to research that thoroughly to make sure that whether or not I'm correct or not, I'm shooting from the hip there. And so
Building permits too.
we can put that on the list, but maybe give us a couple of months to figure that out.
So can we add that to the list? Can we also add, I think, Emily, there was one that you were cautioning me about, and I believe it was water study, that I'd really like to have a conversation about that.
Okay.
Council, any others?
Question about the water resources. I know water resources. I think Kevin maybe can answer this. So what about Washington? Is Idaho and Washington on the same page since the aquifers half in Washington too?
I can definitely answer that. I don't believe they are, even though there is the Spokane Aquifer Joint Board. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have most of the aquifer. It flows from Ponderay basically to the Spokane River. And even though there's a sense of collaboration between the two, I think there's some stumbling blocks between the two states.
No matter what we do here, they can pump whatever they want.
Well, it flows from, our aquifer is not static, it actually flows.
Right.
So
It's
it's
not a lake.
flowing from Ponderay, and it takes it about a year and a half to get to our wells. And then it flows on from that point. So they're on the tail end. I mean, they don't want us to suck it dry. That's about how that would work, because they would run out of water before we would.
There's Washington water rates as well, and they get monitored and they get restricted from junior to senior if water is an issue. So they do have a water rate system in Washington that's very similar to Idaho's, that gets monitored by their department as well. And their waters get shut off. My family farmed in middle Washington for a long time, and they have had their water shut off many times because of water issues. They get monitored.
Council, any others?
To get on the list, you
Yep.
mean?
Did we have public hearings on that list?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the feedback.
We did, we kind of skipped them around, that I kind of did the feedback first and then.
No, I mean
Yeah, that's what I said, I did that
Oh.
first. That we were talking about the process and things and discussing how this went, and what we'd like to see for the future, and then we talked about adding it to another one. Prioritization, it didn't seem like we had a huge list of things, so not too much prioritization. I think there are some things that are gonna take some time for staff to be able to research and to help inform the discussion, but I think there's some of those things that could probably be added to a future city council meeting in short order. I don't imagine that taking too awful long. So I'm not sure if there's any, council, if you guys have any specific items that you would like to be prioritized over others. Speak now. Nobody cares about Rick's water.
Mayor, if there's no prioritization with the council, then we'll work with you specifically on prioritizing these items at a later date.
Yep. There never was any city business before us, but without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, no, thank you.